was given to parties for this purpose. This was done to facilitate participation of members who are connecting to the sitting through the virtual platform. The members who will pose supplementary questions will be recognized by the presiding officer. In allocating opportunities for supplementary questions, the principle of fairness, among others, has been applied. If a member who is supposed to ask a supplementary question through the virtual platform is unable to do so due to technological difficulties, the party whip on duty will be allowed to ask the question on behalf of their member. When all supplementary questions have been answered by the executive, we will proceed to the next question on the question paper. Now, honorable members, the first question today has been asked by the
Honorable House Chair. May I request your indulgence just to inform this August House that yesterday and day before yesterday there was state visit by the President of Portugal. And thereafter, this morning, there was a cabinet meeting. So ministers, it's not deliberate that they are not here physically. All ministers, therefore, ministers.
Tell us about the 600K.
Order, members, therefore, can I listen? I have noted some hands and I will call you.
And therefore,
let's allow the chief whip of the majority party to speak.
And therefore, House Chair, all ministers who are expected to respond to questions, they are online because they were unable to make time, but they are all going to respond. And our rules do allow both virtual and physical. Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Macpherson, followed by Honorable Singh, followed by Honorable Tlangwini.
Thanks, Chair. The Chief Whip story doesn't hold water because there's a cabinet minister, Minister Delil is here, but there's no ANC ministers that are here. So her excuse about cabinet doesn't hold water.
Okay.
Chair, you know, this is not an optional requirement for ministers to be here. We have the Minister of Small Business who's learning about communism in China today, and we have other ministers who are sitting in Pretoria who were at a meeting with the President this morning. Ministers' duties are to this House first. That is who they are accountable to. They are not accountable to the executive. And if we can make the effort to be here, House Chairperson, so can ministers. And I would really ask you to take this to the Programming Committee. Thank you.
Thank you. No, wait, guys, wait. Honorable Singh, it's your opportunity, please. I will respond.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable Chairperson, yeah, we hear what the Chief Whip is saying. But can the Honorable Chief Whip by tomorrow give us a list of all those ministers that are in that meeting there? Because I don't really believe that every minister who's supposed to be answering questions here is in a meeting in Pretoria. And I think we've got an unwritten rule, Honorable Chairperson. Right?
Who's that, Honorable Singh? Who's disturbing you now?
Honorable Papa, he likes me.
Okay. Honorable members, can we listen to the members as they speak? You have a right to speak. Speak, Honorable Singh.
Thank you. I think, Honorable Chairperson and colleagues, we've got an unwritten rule here. Given the circumstances that we faced in the past, where we couldn't hear ministers who were responding virtually, we had to call the responses off and we had to ask them. We've got an unwritten rule that whenever questions are asked, which is once in 3 months or whatever it is, ministers who are answering questions should be physically present. And if they can't hear what we are saying as parliament, then we are wasting our time as parliament here, as members of parliament. Thank you, Honorable Chair. Thank you.
Ma'am Tlangwini?
Thank you very much, House Chair. House Chair, the program of Parliament is planned long in advance and ministers are well aware of the program of Parliament. The unplanned lie that the chief whip of the majority party came and portrayed to us today, it's so unprofessional in terms of how we need to do work of Parliament. Ministers need to come to the House and come and answer questions. This is where they are account to, not at some other state visits. The program of Parliament is long planned ahead. So for the majority party chief whip to come and spin
No.
some story here. it's
Morongwa ga bolaiwe. No,
wrong. You are lying
Honorable
about
Tlangwini?
I've raised my hand.
week out. That's why you are even outside taking bribes because
No,
of this. You are lying.
I'm raising my hand. Point of order.
I cannot take
Wait,
that. I cannot take that, House.
Honorable Chief
Right.
Whip, take your seat.
Come and
No,
sit. No.
before I respond, I want to give to the
Point of order.
the Chief Whip. Deputy Chief Whip, please stand. No, I know what the rules allow. Please allow us to be civil. The only thing is, yes, Honorable Deputy Chief Whip.
Thank you very much, Honorable House Chairperson, for the opportunity. I think as this House, we did adopt rules for virtual and hybrid. The ministers, whenever they are online, they are still in the House because we adopted those rules as this Parliament.
Okay.
Then number two, Honorable House Chairperson, we cannot come to the House and discuss allegations. Anyone who have anything against anyone, they must forward whatever they have to the relevant processes. Our business today is questions to the economic cluster ministers. Can we proceed with that? Let's not be derailed by the unfounded allegations because anyone can be accused of anything. So if there are people with proof,
No.
they must take it to the
Leave
relevant,
it at that. What I'm going to say, honorable members, before I recognize you, Honorable Kwakwa, listen, I've been listening to you all members. The only deviation that I heard about the bribery, that one, I'm going to follow it up. I'm going to check the Hansard and I'm going to come with a ruling on it. Mr. Kwakwa?
Chairperson, I must not be confused with the ANC because I'm dressed in yellow today. But Chairperson, niyasisukela sizihlelele. Oh, Minister, whether they are here physically or virtually, as long as they are present in the House to answer questions, it should not be a problem. And I think the attempt was to preempt opposition parties because you thought would have an issue. We are here to deal with substantive matters. They must answer questions, noba says Zuluini or Anyabala as long as they're able to respond.
Thank you. Tate Malaji.
Thanks, House Chair. I'm rising on a different point of order, which is the conduct of Honorable Babo. Every time there's a speaker on the podium from the opposition, his behavior is unparliamentary, gestures, intimidating.
Okay.
Can you please address that? Thank you.
Honorable members, you see this heckling of yours, you don't allow people to speak. Allow people to speak and I will respond. Honorable members, I think Honorable Kwankwa and Honorable Tlakude have partially responded to what I would have said to say where we have a hybrid model. And as long as we have that report that ministers are available on the virtual platform, we will accept that. Although we know that as chief whips, we have been encouraging that whenever you have a session of question sessions, we would appreciate if members of the executive are physically in the House. But this is a different thing that the chief whip is saying. And to continue to now talk about the chief whip on allegations, that matter is not going to rest. I will check on it and I will come back and rule on it. For now, honorable members, let us also remember that sometimes when a minister is not in the house, we have a rule 138, number 3, that allows even deputy ministers to respond. That can be given to them. I know it's not good for you to see the chairs like this. I think the chief whip was trying to explain, and we will keep on talking about it because the chief whips know they've been talking about it. McPherson, I'm not going to enter into, Honorable McPherson, I'm not going back to this. I think I've ruled. I'm now going to allow the first question to proceed. Thank you. Honorable members, the first question is the question by the Honorable ST Peko. Ask to the Minister of Tourism. The Honorable the Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Thank you to the member for the question. Yes, indeed, Honorable Member, the acting appointments over a long period of time in the entity added to the instability of the entity. The previous South African Tourism Board, headed by Advocate Majanku Gumbi, she commenced a process to fill vacancies at SAT. And that particularly in relation to the recruitment of a permanent CEO. However, my predecessor, the former Minister Lindiwe Sisulu, in 2021, did not concur with the appointment recommended to her, and that led to us having an acting CEO in the entity for almost 1.5 years. That process led to the appointment of the Chief Quality Assurance Officer and also the Chief Operating Officer. And at that time, we did have a permanent CFO. And in January 2023, before January 2023, the CFO resigned. And we had 2 acting CFOs. Up till today, we've got an acting CFO. And then 4 months into the term of the new board in January 2023, the new board then decided to start a recruitment process. And noting that all of these things were happening around the Tottenham Hotspurs deal, which ultimately led to the dissolution of the board, I put a temporary moratorium on the recruitment of executives of SA Tourism so that I could familiarize myself with the developments. Subsequently, going forward, in a meeting I held with the South African Tourism Board on Monday, 29th May, I was informed that they are consulting a recruitment company to fill the post of Chief Executive Officer, Chief Financial Officer, Chief Strategy Officer, Chief Conventions Bureau, Chief Marketing Office, and also Head of the Internal Unit, Audit Unit. These posts will now be advertised. Organizational stability at SA Tourism requires active participation by all parties, including the minister's oversight role, the board overseeing the affairs of the entity, and the executive management providing operational leadership. I dissolved the board, the former board, by way of a notice in the Gazette, and appointed 3 persons in terms of Section 16B of the Act to manage the affairs of the board until the appointment of the new board, for which we have advertised already. I continue to exercise oversight over SA Tourism. I've also commenced a process to review the service level agreement with SA Tourism to regulate the relationship between the department and SA Tourism. So the purpose of the SLA is to govern the relationship with the minister and the board and the executive in order to facilitate compliance with laws, prescripts, as well as adherence to corporate governance principles. I thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The Honorable Chako. Keko.
Thanks, Honorable Chair. I'm standing in for Honorable Kweko.
Thank you.
Minister, when is the 5th position in the executive management at South African Tourism, which include Chief Executive Officer and the Chief Financial Officer, being filled? And what process and measures are in place to ensure this is promptly done? Thank you.
The Honorable the Minister.
Member, thank you, Honorable Chair. Yes, indeed, like I've just said, South African Tourism Agency entity, they have a panel of 3 recruitment companies to be used for this purpose. The consultation with the recruitment company has begun, and they will be advertising the post soon. I will get a date as to when, but I know soon the post will be advertised. Thank you.
Thank you. The next follow-up question will be asked by the Honorable De Freitas.
Thank you, House Chair. My apologies, with your indulgence, if I could keep my camera off. My signal is not very strong. It is clear, and the Minister just admitted, that there's a lack of stability within SA Tourism. And this can be attributed to the absence of those permanent executive managers that she spoke about. How does the Minister reconcile this glaring absence of this managerial leadership and the principles of physical prudence and economic viability, particularly in the light of the controversy surrounding the Tottenham Hotspur deal and allegations of corruption against the current acting CEO of South African Tourism, who you've kept on despite the knowledge of such allegations on corruption?
Thank you, Honorable De Freitas. The Honorable the Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, we are dealing with a lot of allegations of corruption. In fact, the entity has got a whistleblower hotline. For the past 3 years, all the calls that came through about alleged corruption in the entity was never attended to. Since the new board came on, we received another 13 allegations of corruption in the entity. My advice, and the board has followed it, we have now turned to the SIU. Advocate Matibe has agreed to second 2 officials from the SIU to investigate every allegation of corruption, including allegations of corruption in the supply chain management process. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Kakau, please mute. The second question will be asked by the Honorable Matumba.
Thank you. Minister, when Mr. Tim Harris resigned from Parliament as DA Member of Parliament, you appointed him to work in your Cape Town mayoral office. Don't you think that your past relationship with Mr. Tim Harris at your mayoral office, his relationship with your advisor at Westgrom, and his relationship with Ms. Koleka Zama at Westgrom will further deepen lack of stability and create bad corporate governance for SA Tourism, given that the interim board is run by 4 members, which is him, Ms. Sama Koleka, Zwelibanzi Mtambo, and departmental representative?
Thank you. The Honorable the Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. The answer is no. People were appointed on the basis of their experience and their qualifications that were verified. We put the 3 members of the board together to have one finance experience. Ms. Koleka Zama she's a chartered accountant. Mr. Tim Harris has got experience in tourism and also experience in economics. And his CV is there for everybody to see. Mrs. William Tambo, the other board member, used to be the DG for the Gauteng province. So I am totally confident that they do have the experience and the integrity to manage on a caretaker level and an interim basis to manage the board. Already with the cleaning up process of SAT, because I've inherited a mess there. It's a mess. They've been assisting me to help the department to clean up SAT. We have advertised for the new board. Once the new board comes on, they will be able to continue with a more stable SAT that this current board members has been able to progress towards. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The last follow-up question will be asked by Utatu Stole.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable Minister, with reference to your concern regarding the conduct of the board, in respect of Totalham Horsepat sponsorship matter, I would like to know how and what consequences management measures the implication board members will be facing and when. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Honorable Minister.
My apology, Honorable Chair, I didn't get the last part of the question, if the Honorable Member.
Can you repeat, because you had your more
Consequence
minutes?
management.
You can repeat, Babstol.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. My last question was, I would like to know how and what consequences management measures the implicated board members will be facing and when.
Or the ones that, yeah, I know consequences, is there consequence management? That's the question.
Oh,
Sure.
thank you, Honorable Chair. Certainly, we would have loved to go that way, and in terms of the investigations that are being done by the SIU, if any of the previous board members were implicated, we will certainly pursue that. We are looking at the process of consequence management within the organization itself. That need to be driven by the CEO. And we had an acting CEO for more than 18 months. So certainly with the investigations by the SIU, there will be consequence management for anybody alleged to be involved in any form of wrongdoing or corruption.
Thank you. As we proceed to question number 270, asked by the Honorable Macpherson to the Minister of Trade and Industry.
Thank you very much, House Chair, and good afternoon to honorable members. I'd like to contextualize my reply with a brief explanation of South Africa's overall trade strategy. We're a member of the World Trade Organization, which provides guaranteed access to markets across the world based on what is called the most favored nation principle. In addition to this, we have preferential access to a number of markets on either negotiated terms or by the unilateral decision of the other trading partner country. Our most important focus now is to develop the African Continental Free Trade Area as the basis for long-term growth in trade. In this regard, I'm pleased to inform this House that at the recent meeting of the African trade ministers held in Kenya, the trade offer of South Africa, Namibia, Botswana, Eswatini, and Lesotho was accepted. The offer includes all the products that we will begin opening up to preferential trade with all AFC FTA partner countries. This, honorable members, is a major step forward in our trade strategy. In addition, we have two economic partnership agreements, one with the EU and the other with the United Kingdom, and we have preferential trade agreements with 4 Latin American countries and some European countries not covered by the EU. These are negotiated and our access is legally defined. The United States provides unilateral access to its market through an act of the US Congress, namely the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act, or AGOA, as it's called. It's due to expire in 2025. It's been renewed previously, and we are working closely with a number of other African countries to have it renewed and extended again. As part of this effort, we've engaged across 3 fronts. First, with members of the US administration, second, with members of the US Congress, and third, with members of the US business community. Last year, I met with my trade counterpart, who's the United States trade representative, in June, in September, and in December, and again in January this year. And in addition, we've held virtual meetings, most recently last week. I also met in Washington, D.C. last December with senior members of the US administration from other departments, in addition to trade. They included agriculture, commerce, and state. I was nominated by the other African trade ministers to put forward the motivation for the extension of AGOA on behalf of all sub-Saharan African countries and to identify certain refinements to its terms. This I did to a meeting of members of the US Congress as well as members of the US administration. We value the relationship with all our trading partners, and the relationship with the United States is important as it accounts for significant trade and investment, and that helps with jobs. Most of our exports to the United States is covered by World Trade Organization rules, accounting for just over 80% of all our exports during 2021. AGOA and another preference called GSP accounts for just under 18% of our exports to the US. AGOA also assists to draw in economic benefits for neighboring countries. And so we'll continue to work with the US administration and the US Congress to extend AGOA beyond 2025. And this will be done in close collaboration with other African countries. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister of Order, Trade. I didn't read it correctly. Trade, Industry and Competition. The Honorable McPherson.
Minister, AGOA is the single most important trade agreement that South Africa has. We don't have to do much in return for it. The only requirements we have to meet is to establish or make continual progress toward things like a market-based economy and the rule of law, amongst others. However, it can be revoked and not reenacted if a country acts contrary to the United States' national security or foreign policy interests. From joint naval exercises with Russia, to overseas jaunts to Moscow, to allowing a sanctioned Russian ship to dock in our naval base. It would seem your government is doing everything possible to invoke an exclusion from AGOA by antagonizing America. The ANC government has done everything possible to disprove its non-aligned position, including breaking ranks with the non-aligned movement countries who have voted in the UN to condemn the Russian war in Ukraine, except our own country. Our position is so hard to explain that you are being dispatched to do so with G7 countries. If it was so non-aligned, then there would be no need to do so. Surely supporting a murderous war criminal like Vladimir Putin is not worth locking us out of access from AGOA. Surely the needs of South Africans come before the needs of the connected oligarchs in Russia. Now, I have it on good authority that your officials, yourself and envoys previously sent to the US have made little to no progress on securing an extension to AGOA, which would decimate our economy. Minister, do you and the President take responsibility for the precarious position we find ourselves in over AGOA? And will you guarantee to this House that you will put the interests of South Africans first and secure our participation in AGOA over the interests of Russia? Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Minister, before you respond, let us also remind ourselves that Rule 142, number 6, says a follow-up question should comprise of only one question. We just remind you members, we are working with rules. So the minister has got a right to respond to the correctly. Proceed, Honorable Minister. Honorable members.
Thank you very much.
Proceed, Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, House Chair. I think I recognize that Honorable McPherson has strong political views, and he's had his 2 minutes to express those views. My job is to put forward rationally and calmly the arguments why the extension of AGOA would be good for sub-Saharan Africa, to point to the reasons why South Africa benefiting from access to AGOA is good for development in South Africa, and at the same time for us to maintain and strengthen trade and investment links with the United States, as well as with a number of other countries across the world. We live in an increasingly polarized world. South Africa's single and overriding objective, and it defines our national interests, is the creation of jobs in South Africa and opportunities for small businesses in our country. And so as we navigate all of the turbulence in global politics, we will keep our eye on how to advance South Africa's interests. I would look to get the support of all members of parliament from all different parties in securing the best deal that South Africa can have in obtaining access to markets across the world. And that's what we're going to be focused on. I thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Sheikh Imam.
Thank you, House Chairperson. Minister, there is no doubt about it that the United States of America particularly is adopting a bullying attitude, given our neutral stance in the Russia-Ukraine war that's taking place. Now, and we know very well that it is not depending on trade and investment alone, but more importantly, what the US wants you to do to be enemies with their enemies. What measures is your department putting in place to strengthen trade relations with BRICS nations? And you know they are gaining momentum with 19 countries now applying to join the BRICS. So what measures is your department putting to strengthen trade relations and have greater investment to and from the BRICS countries, so that in the event of the USA with their bullying conduct intend to restrict us as far as their AGOA treatment, it will not have any negative impact on the economy in South Africa?
Thank you. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Sheikh Imam, for your question. I would want to start by making the point that we're doing everything possible to deepen our trade relations with BRICS countries. China in particular, as well as India's growth rates are very high, and that can act as markets, important markets for South African goods. But given the size of our unemployment problem and the need to grow our economy, we do that not as an alternative to strengthening relations with the United States and the European Union. We're doing both of those. And most importantly, we're putting a lot of effort into strengthening relations, economic relations with the rest of the African continent. I've spent time with African trade ministers helping to craft the modalities for the implementation of an African continental free trade area. If we look over the last number of years, our trade with the rest of the continent has grown. But what's really important about it is not only are we selling products, we're selling manufactured products with high levels of value addition, which creates more jobs here in South Africa. And it is true that countries across the world trade more with their neighbors. It's a legacy of colonialism that we have traded with countries outside the continent. We want to establish that deep economic relationship on the African continent, and at the same time, we're open to trading with the rest of the world. I thank you.
Thank you. The next follow-up will be asked by the Honorable Mulder, FJ.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. It is already common knowledge that other factors other than pure trade risks and trade situation is stand in the possible way of the AGOA agreement to be renewed. And my question would be to the Honourable Minister, if he is confident that South Africa is indeed looking to the future and considering permanent arrangements beyond AGOA in the form of strategic trade and investment packages or a free trade agreement. As far as possible, enhanced market access is concerned, reduced trade barriers and fostering innovation would be facilitated, and high job creation could be created. All included with skills transfers, in other words, everything that is possible to make the renewal of this agreement a success. Thank you, Honourable Chair.
Thank you. The Honourable the Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable Mulder, for that question. There are two components to the question. The first one points to the efforts that we need to make to build the competitiveness of the South African economy. Skills development is key. Resolving our infrastructure bottlenecks and challenges is important, and securing economies of scale. In other words, large markets that we can sell our products in, all of which reduces the price of those products. So we're putting a lot of effort into that. The annual performance plan of the department is focused very much on the kind of areas, Honourable Mulder, that you've pointed to. The second part of the question is whether we are doing everything we can to try to ensure that we retain access to different markets, including in the case of the United States. I want to recall that a number of years ago, there was also a threat that South Africa would be removed from AGOA. This was during the time when we implemented certain policy measures relating to poultries, the poultry industry and the protection of jobs in South Africa. We engaged the United States on that matter. It was quite lengthy negotiations, at times quite a bit of heated public comment, but at the end of the day, we were able to find each other, and South Africa has subsequently secured and maintained access to AGOA. We hope we can constructively engage the United States government. Trade is a two-way story. We have also, incidentally, investment in the United States. Granted, it's a relatively small percentage of the US investment stock, and the United States has significant investments in South Africa. But it's working through those things, the supply of key raw materials, critical minerals, and then a base for American investment on the African continent. All of those issues, I'm sure, will be properly ventilated in the course of what I hope will be a friendly and constructive conversation with an important, a very important trade and investment partner. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. And the last question, the last follow-up question will be asked by the Honourable Hermans.
Thank you, House Chair. Minister, South Africa is by far the greatest beneficiary of the African Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA, particularly in the citrus sector. However, this has largely been dependent on the United States of America extending the agreement. What efforts are in place to extend a similar type of agreement to other trading partners across the globe to avert the overdependence on one country for the survival of the sector?
Thank you. The Honourable the Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable Hermans, for that question. Perhaps let me contextualize the access to the US citrus market in our global trade. It's an important market. The United States is at the moment the 6th largest destination for South African citrus products. So it is in the top 10. We sell quite a bit, about 1.7 billion rands worth of citrus products from memory. And we've been trying to open up new markets for citrus because the South African citrus industry is an industry we can all be enormously proud of. It has grown, it's expanded, it's invested more, it's employed more people, and it is taking the world by storm. Yesterday, I had a meeting with the Portuguese president as part of the state visit, and I offered the Portuguese president South African-made citrus fruit. and he had two oranges from South Africa and declared it to be very, very tasty indeed. Now, we've also opened up the market in China, particularly for lemons and limes. That was a relatively recent initiative. We're working across a number of other countries from Japan to South Korea, Vietnam, India, and others to open up markets, to limit restrictions, and to ensure that we have easy access. And we hope that we can do this once an alternative, but in addition to the access we can get in the United States. So the more oranges we sell in the world, the more we spread joy and happiness. Who have tasted the South African orange doesn't just love the stuff. And so we want the world's consumers to taste more of our oranges, get more vitamin C into their bodies, and help us to create more jobs here in South Africa. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable members, order. Honorable members, I wish to acknowledge the presence in the gallery of a multi-party delegation from the National Assembly of Parliament of Kenya, led by the Honorable Fabian Multi and Honorable Fatuma Mohammed, to obtain a perspective of the South Africa parliamentary system. You are welcome to the National Assembly of the South Africa, Parliament of South Africa. We appreciate your presence. Thank you very much. You can see it's a small space, but I think they've explained that is a gallery where you are seated because of that rope. You will be welcoming the chief whips of this parliament in 2 weeks or 3 weeks in Kenya. Thank you. Honorable members, we now proceed to question number 294, asked by the Honorable Mautwe to the Minister of Public Enterprise. The Minister.
Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, honorable members. And let me add my voice of welcome to our colleagues from Kenya as well. In response to Honorable Mautwe's question, by way of some background, we would be familiar that South Africa's energy system is drawn from coal, nuclear, hydro, solar, onshore wind, and concentrated solar, pump storage, and diesel-fueled open-cycle gas turbines. Of course, coal provides 80% of our energy, and currently renewables provide 7.3% of our energy. As part of that system, we have 28,000 kilometers of high voltage lines in our transmission system, and another 325,000 kilometers of low voltage lines that distribute electricity to homes and businesses. So when we talk about the collapse of the grid, this is the system that we are actually talking about that must be safeguarded and is safeguarded, as I will indicate in a moment. The transmission lines have to maintain a frequency of 50 hertz oscillation to keep the grid going and functional. And this is the job of the systems operator. When there's an imbalance between the demand and the supply, that is when the system operator intervenes, and I'll say how in a moment, and if need be, implements load shading at different levels as part of our risk management system. The systems operator in South Africa is a world-class set of individuals and system that controls the grid frequency, as I said, at the National Control Center in Johannesburg, and ensures that there's a balance between electricity supply and demand for the country on a real-time basis, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, to maintain the grid frequency of 50 hertz, as I indicated. The systems operator ensures that the stability of the national electricity grid is always maintained by maintaining this balance between supply and demand. And it has developed a formidable forecasting capability to anticipate how much of electricity will be used every hour of the day. This is called demand forecasting of the day ahead, so that sufficient generation capacity can be made available to supply this electricity and to deal with any contingency that may arise by using the OCGTs, the turbines, or pump storage stations to maintain the balance in the overall system. Should emergency generation measures at its disposal not be sufficient, the systems operator is able to interrupt large customers and the supply to them for an agreed period of time, or to call for curtailment of demand by qualifying customers as well. So there are other mechanisms that the systems operator has available to it as well. If all of these measures fail, the systems operator then does what we are familiar with, which is load shedding, and will instruct the different regional distribution centers and municipalities to implement rotational load shedding. The systems operator again decides on the level of load shedding, depending on what is required to maintain the balance between supply and demand at the end of the day. In respect of the plan that government has as a whole, as we are all familiar, the president announced in July last year a comprehensive energy action plan, and that action plan is currently being implemented through the National Energy Crisis Committee, which is now coordinated by the Minister of Electricity. And in broad terms, the plan hopes to achieve the following. Firstly, to fix Eskom, which is what the main job of the
Honorable Minister, unfortunately, on the first question, I've already given you some seconds. You have 4 minutes. I will have to stop you there.
That's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Mautwe.
Will be taken by Honorable Suisa. Madam Chair.
Ms. Suisa, you may proceed.
Minister, given our knowledge that there are no existing plans to address persistent load shedding and the bewildering fact that the minister has yet to tender his resignation, we want to know, has the South African Reserve Bank circulated any data to corroborate their green proclamation of total grid collapse? Do you place faith in these assertions based on the data provided? Has there been a collective discussion between the minister and the president, specifically tackling the potential total grid collapse? If such a dialogue did transpire, can you enlighten us on the primary outcomes of this conversation? Considering the relentless load shedding crisis, what definitive actions are being considered to fortify our national power grid? Finally, could you explain the reasoning behind the Eskom and the minister's agreement that the fiscal package allocated to Eskom should not be utilized for additional generations? What logic underpins the seemingly counterintuitive decision? It's not your question. It's not your question. You are not a minister.
Honorable Minister, again, for the last time, let me remind members and alert members, you are protected by the rules of the National Assembly. Rule 132, number 6, number 7, supplementary question may not consist of more than one question. Over to you, Minister.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable Suisa, as I was about to say, there is a plan. The plan was announced in July last year. The key components of the plan are to fix Eskom and improve the availability of existing supply by restoring system stability and increasing generation capacity. Secondly, to enable and accelerate private investment in generation capacity. Thirdly, to accelerate procurement of new capacity from renewables, gas, and battery storage. Fourth, to unleash businesses and households to invest in rooftop solar, and fifth, to fundamentally transform the electricity sector to achieve long-term energy security. So there is a very clear plan from government. As far as the Reserve Bank is concerned, I think they do their own modeling, and I'm not familiar with the data, but the Minister of Electricity, to whom this question should actually go, is actually possibly in command of that data. And as far as the total collapse of the grid is concerned, a number of measures, as I pointed out in my initial answer, are already in place together with a very efficient and effective systems operator amongst the best in the world to ensure that the grid collapse does not actually occur. As far as the additional generation is concerned, as far as the fiscal package, that is a measure or a condition that has been put in place by the National Treasury. And if there are to be exceptions to that, I'm sure the Treasury will be open to discussions and negotiations on that. So to repeat, Chair, there is a clear plan. That plan is being implemented through the National Energy Crisis Committee. That committee is now coordinated by the Minister of Electricity, and already there's evidence of some improvement together with the assistance of the private sector and others in the performance of Eskom's plants. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. We now go to the Honorable Mkhwanazi.
Thank you, House Chair. Thank you, Minister, for clarity. Minister, while load shedding is implemented to shelter Eskom grid from total failure and thus safeguard the countries against the greater risk of blackouts, is there reserves measures in place and load shedding sufficient to prevent the so-called collapse of Eskom grid, given the high electricity demand during winter period, until such time when IPPs can supply more electricity to the grid, and the anticipatory measures in place to hedge businesses and households in the unlikely event of the so-called grid collapse, whereby reduce the risk of business failure? Thank you, House Chair.
Thank you. The Honorable the Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Mkhwanazi, for your question. There are a number of measures in place in addition to the ones that I've already mentioned. And some of those would be, firstly, during winter, there's a lower level of maintenance taking place. Usually below 3,000 megawatts is out of the system during this period, and perhaps even lower. Whereas by comparison, in summer, there is a much higher set of units that are taken off for maintenance, and up to about 9,500 megawatts could be out of the system as well. So secondly, load shedding on the basis that I've just described, where the systems operator has the task of managing supply and demand and the reserve capacities that are actually within the system itself, will determine from time to time the level of load shedding that is required. And as you can see, in more recent times, there's been more load shedding at the levels 2 and 3 and 4 rather than 6 and beyond as well. So this is as a result of some of the interventions that have been put in place in recent times, and I'm sure that we will see further improvements in the output from the current plant that we have. An additional measure, which all parties should join hands in, is to call on all South Africans to manage the demand of electricity better, put extra lights off, put the geysers off, put pools off, and so on, so that that demand management can make a very useful contribution to leaving a greater amount of electricity on the system and not utilizing electricity unnecessarily. So in sum, Honorable Mkhwanazi, the chances of grid failure in South Africa, as we have repeatedly said from government, is very low. We can't deny that it's a possibility, but it's a very, very, very low possibility. And all of the measures that government has put in place are beginning to have an impact on the stability of the system, but also the output of the current system. And as you correctly put it, as investments in IPPs and other forms of energy take place and are connected to the grid, we will be in a much more secure position in the coming months and years. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Minister. The next follow-up, Honorable Kachalia.
Thank you. As the minister in charge for the state electrical utility, he is solely and ultimately responsible for the current state of crisis it is in. But still the utility has an interim CEO and an interim chairperson in the face of a crisis that is all but interim. We have heard about his interim interventions to stave off a grid collapse and that of the interim project manager. Perhaps he should declare himself an interim minister who has failed dismally. The question allied to what steps the minister is taking to deal with this unsatisfactory state of affairs that is awash with interim positions is, will he really declare his satisfaction with the 3 shortlisted candidates for CEO when the crisis is calling out for the Red Adair, a world expert of the electricity business, to fix up the mess he has perpetuated and not interim
Thank you. Your
people
time is up.
to do his bidding?
Honorable
I'm sure
the
he
Minister.
agrees.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. As usual, Honorable Kachalia specializes in a lack of understanding of what we are doing. So firstly, there is no interim chair. There is a permanent board that has been in place for some time, in fact, since October last year. How that escaped Honorable Kachalia, I'm not sure, but I suppose his focus is on the Gauteng competition that's about to come up in which he's a participant. Secondly, we have a permanent head of generation in the system. Thirdly, as far as the CEO process is concerned, that is a matter that the board is looking at. And once that process is completed, the public will be informed. And you cannot rush these processes. They need to take their normal course, and the board must be given the space in order to do what is necessary to ensure that the best possible candidate is made available. And I have no formal information provided to me from the board in relation to any number of candidates and what their preferences are, or which direction they are likely to actually go in. And then lastly, Chairperson, if we can just remind ourselves that there was a phenomenon called state capture. There was huge damage done to the Eskom plant. It's well recorded that corruption and other forms of sabotage are doing untold damage to the Eskom system itself. And all of those are receiving attention through the Energy Action Plan. Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Inkosi Mthelezi.
Thank you very much, House Chair. Honorable Minister, I've listened to you trying to outline the interventions to prevent the total collapse of the grid and against the many failed undertakings by your good self to turn Eskom around and to fix and improve its efficiency. Why this time round we should believe any of your interventions, because all the problems that we have has occurred under your watch.
The Honorable the Minister.
Again, Chairperson Honorable Buthelezi repeatedly misrepresents the facts. And of course, it suits us all as political parties as we work our way towards elections next year. So, in fact, things have improved. Governance has improved. More people have been thrown out of Eskom that were responsible for the malfeasance that actually took place. Recommendations of the Zondo Commission are being implemented. Money is being recovered from firms like ABB and others who engaged in malfeasance. There are people who have been charged by the NPA whose trial should come up very shortly. A new board is in place, Chairperson as well. And they are, since the appointment of the Minister of Electricity, whose focus is on this particular area, any number of interventions and improvements under the umbrella of the Energy Action Plan announced by the President. So all we can say is that these things take time. I don't actually take a spanner and turn bolts around in Eskom, just for Honorable Buthelezi's information. That is the work of people who are operating the plants. What I try to do is create an atmosphere where they are supported, they are encouraged, they are congratulated for every advance they make, but also the malfeasance within the system are dealt with as harshly as possible by the system. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Honorable members, we now proceed to question number 251. Asked to the Minister of Public Enterprises by the Honorable Dlamini. The Honorable, the Minister.
Thanks you, Chairperson, and thanks to Honorable Dlamini for his question. Given that domestic refineries are experiencing closures due to the unrecoverable, expensive upgrades to meet the green economy standards that energy firms are not willing to spend money on, and that ports and import facilities need to be modified to handle a changed liquid fuel import product mix and the increased volume. Sorry, I'm reading the question rather than the answer. My apologies. TNPA is currently enabling the importation, storage, and handling of the liquid fuels through its infrastructure, primarily at 6 ports, handling both the white, so-called, and clean fuels at various ports. Import infrastructure includes berths, loading arms, and pipelines. Storage infrastructure includes storage tanks and pipelines, and handling infrastructure includes loading gantries to evaluate the fuel or excavate or rather transfer the fuel via road and rail. As far as the Port of Richards Bay is concerned, TNPA has issued an RFP for the construction of a liquefied natural gas import facility at berth 207 with a planned operational date of by the financial year 26-27. TNPA is also preparing an RFP for a liquid bulk facility at the South Dunes precinct. This was after feedback from the market through a request for information process that indicated interest in LPG import infrastructure. As far as the Port of Durban is concerned, the Ports Authority has issued a request for proposal for an LPG import storage and handling terminal in Durban. The proposed terminal is expected to be in operation within 3 years. The Port of East London, again, the Ports Authority is developing a business opportunity and an expression for interest for LPG import storage and handling terminal in East London. The target is to issue the EOI to the market by August 2023. The ports of Nuka and Port Elizabeth, in this case, the Port of Port Elizabeth's liquid bulk facility, including liquid fuels, was constructed in 1938 and has reached the end of its design life. These facilities pose a health and environmental risk, and therefore TNPA is committed berth space and land at Nuka for the development of a new liquid bulk facility that will include liquid fuels, which project is expected to be in operation by the financial year 26-27. Similar developments are taking place at Mossel Bay, where the Ports Authority is doing a market analysis to define a feasible liquid fuel facility with regards to size and fuel grades. And in Mossel Bay, Petro SA plans to recommission its operations by the year 26-27 as well. Similarly, in Cape Town, the Ports Authority has issued an RFP for an LPG import and storage and handling terminal, and this is proposed to come into operation within the next 3 years. The TNPA's operational model includes concessioning of terminal operations, and this is one form of partnership model which includes both the public and the private sector in partnership. With both the current and planned liquid fuel terminals, private sector participation is dominant, with the Ports Authority increasingly providing common user infrastructure and assuming the role of landlord and the authority. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Minister. Ilunga eliphekileyo lendlu. Umhlonishwa uDlamini.
Oh, thanks, Chair. Thanks, Minister, for the response. Honorable Minister, Transnet issued an RFQ for Ambrose Park in Durban, and that was in 2017. To date, nothing has happened. How much has Transnet lost in trying to get out of that arrangement of 2017, outside of the 25 million that the court ruled against Transnet? Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. The Honorable Minister.
I really don't have the number at hand, Chairperson, so I will provide Honorable Dlamini with a written response on that.
Thank you. The Honorable Isaac.
Thank you, Chairperson. Honorable Minister, it is common knowledge that Transnet's operational inefficiencies has affected the economy across all business sectors. The Transnet Ports Authority is, of course, calling on interested parties to respond to a request for proposals for a suitable terminal operator to finance, design, build, and operate a terminal, as well as the common user infrastructure for the handling of liquid petroleum gas, as you've alluded to, especially in the liquid bulk precinct in the Port of Cape Town. Now, Honorable Minister, given Transnet's ranking of its ports at the very bottom of worldwide rankings and the inability to elicit sufficient private sector interest, of course, in other allied sectors also, rail in particular, the question is, Minister, what confidence
Your time
do you,
is up.
Minister, have?
I will allow you, but your time is up. You have 1 minute, not
Okay,
2.
ma'am.
I will allow you. Proceed with the question.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm very grateful, Chairperson. What confidence do you, Minister, have that Transnet will secure the LPG desired terminal operator? And what will the consequences be if this is not achieved within the stated time frame? I thank you.
Please, honorable members, avoid preambles. If you are you ask your second one to ask the supplementary question, remember you have only 1 minute. The Honorable the Minister.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thanks to Honorable Isaac for the question. In fact, contrary to what the Honorable Member says, there is a great deal of international in the infrastructure investments, but also the kind of equipment that Transnet requires at the moment in order to modernize its operations at ports and at the rail level. And in respect of the fuel industry as well. Just 2 days ago, I met through digital means with probably one of the largest shipping lines in the world at the level of the chairperson of the board, and had a very constructive engagement with them about their interest both in South Africa, but also on the African continent as well. So there's a huge appetite for investment in this part of the world. And secondly, Transnet's issuing of RFPs and EOIs and so on have actually received very extensive responses, both from local players and international players as well. So certainly in the kind of projects that we are talking about in respect of the fuel sector, I don't think there's any shortage of people who are interested in either partnering with Transnet or entering into some kind of investment projects with other players as far as South Africa is concerned. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you. Ma'am Swiss. Oh, is Honorable Maute able to? Oh, Ma'am
Thanks, Chair.
Konto.
Mkonto will take the question on behalf of Maudwe.
Proceed, ma'am.
Minister, we are aware that the Made from Washington implemented here in South Africa by the IMF and the World Bank stooges is to collapse state-owned strategic assets to pave a way for full privatization. It's worth recalling that the former president once advocated for the government to acquire a stake in Engine, a proposal dismissed in favor of the National Treasury's profit-oriented and private sector biased decisions. Looking at the current landscape, wouldn't that move have mitigated our present challenges? Is it not high time that we revisit this strategy, prioritizing national interest and livelihoods of millions over short-term profit enjoyed by the few friends of the minister who have captured National Treasury officials. Thank you, Chair.
Honorable the Minister.
Chairperson, once again, the honorable member and her political party make unfounded allegations about so-called friends and so-called projects about which they know they have no concrete evidence at all. And the House needs to look at whether these sorts of allegations should be permitted at all. But let's leave that aside for the moment, because that's expected from certain quarters. The IMF or the World Bank, to the best of my knowledge, have not given this government any instructions whatsoever in respect of any state-owned entity or any enterprise in which the state has any interest. Secondly, we pride ourselves on our fiscal sovereignty in South Africa and are not dependent on any structural programs that these institutions impose on many other parts of the world. Of course, they themselves have changed over the last 10 years, having had responses from, but also understood the ill effects of some of the programs that they have in place. Thirdly, there is no privatization program, which is another repeated misleading commentary that comes from certain quarters. What we have is a very realistic understanding that all of the investments that we are talking about in various forms of infrastructure that the state is required to make cannot be afforded by the state alone, given its capital shortage, and that either for reasons of capital input, skills input, or new technologies being introduced in South Africa, partnerships are necessary between government entities and other players, both in South Africa and elsewhere in the world. This is the way in which most of the world advances their economies, creates jobs in their countries, and ensures that citizens benefit, and not just a few individuals who take money and put them in their pockets or in secret bank accounts in different parts of the world, including South Africa. So there's no privatization, there's no instructions, and we as government and as a sovereign government make the decisions about where South Africa needs to go. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Yes, Honorable McPherson.
Thanks, Chair. I'd like to rise on Rule 63. It is not up to the Minister to suggest to this House how MPs should moderate their speech or what they can say in this House. And I would ask that you kindly remind him that as a member of the executive, he is accountable to us, not the other way around. Thank you very much.
Chair, may I respond?
No, Honorable Minister, leave it at that. Honorable Minister, we know. I heard you, Honorable Member. Yes, Honorable Papa.
Chair, I rise in terms of Rule 89. No member may reflect upon the merit of on any matter, even if a member has no right to make allegation without a substantive motion in the House.
No, honorable members, let me say this, and I'm going to say it now. You see, this throwing of allegations is becoming a serious issue. And I think we should deal with it and at the Rules Committee. Members are just throwing allegations. And you know that the rule says, if you have something to raise about a member, you need to put a substantive motion. This takes us to the same one that I ruled before about the bribes. You must bring a substantive motion. So we will deal with those issues. Let's not do that. Thank you. We proceed. The Honorable Kwankwa.
Thank you very much, House Chair. Minister has already indicated in the original question, CF2 regulations stipulate the amount of sulfur levels that should be contained in diesel and gasoline. However, quite a number of our refineries have not been able to meet or implement the higher spec rules, which has led to their closure. And the reason for that is due to the exorbitant amount of resources required to conduct these infrastructure upgrades. What kind of support what kind of support is the department or government going to provide to the industry to stem the closure of these refineries in order to ensure, firstly, the security of supply and that we are not susceptible to external supply side shocks or disruptions? Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable, the Minister.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thanks to Honorable Kwankwa for his question. He's quite right that over many years, Chairperson, government has been trying to persuade the big oil companies to actually invest in the upgrading of refineries in South Africa. But secondly, over the recent maybe 10 years or so or less, there's been any number of closures of refineries around the world, and that has created its own positive outcome for some of the firms, but at the same time creates uncertainty, as Honorable Kwankwa says, in terms of the supply factor. And thirdly, in terms of the plans in this particular regard, the Minister of Energy is better placed to respond to Honorable Kwankwa. So I'll pass on that part of the question to him. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The honorable members, we now on question 293. Asked by Inkosi Buthelezi to the Minister of Public Enterprises. The Honorable, the Minister.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thanks to Honorable Buthelezi for his question. Eskom intends to find solutions to exempt schools, hospitals, clinics, and police stations where this is feasible. Given the nature of the grids that operate, as I was explaining under a different question, in each of the municipalities in South Africa or different parts of South Africa. At present, Eskom is engaging with these entities regarding their points of supply. Once this engagement has been completed, and where possible, measures will be implemented to mitigate the impact of load shedding as far as is practically possible. Currently, Eskom exempts or partially exempts more than 70 public health establishments, but is looking at another 200 of them as well. And the key factor, Chairperson, is where exactly is the connectivity of electricity to these particular facilities happening? And is it possible to actually isolate the facility from the remainder of the grid? And those are technical issues that need to be worked through carefully without damaging the supply to the clinic or the school or the hospital on the one hand, or damaging the grid on the other hand. Where a facility is deeply embedded, and this reinforces my point, in the network, partial exemption at lower stages of load shedding has been granted to some of the facilities as well. Eskom has concluded preliminary assessments of establishing dedicated feeders to critical infrastructure. This assessment has been shared with the relevant departments, and implementation is under discussion with those departments. The implementation time frame is envisaged to take the next 12 to 24 months after the investment decision. And depending on the type of solution and other factors such as environmental approvals and land acquisition where that is applicable. In respect of the second part of the question, a High Court order was made against the Department of Public Enterprises, amongst others. However, Eskom will collaborate with the department in the implementation of the orders as and when required. The department, together with government, is appealing the judgment of the High Court relating to load shedding in critical infrastructure or to critical infrastructure. While Eskom awaits the judicial outcome, it has been engaging with the relevant departments, as I've just pointed out, regarding its point of supply within the Eskom supply areas to find practical solutions. So there is no lack of willingness on the part of government, Eskom or the department or other departments to ensure that these critical facilities receive electricity as they are required. These are technical and practical impediments that we have to overcome and carefully evaluate before the measures that have already been taking place in respect to certain health facilities are extended to other facilities as well. And in certain instances, other kinds of assistance might have to be offered in the form of generators and other forms of equipment as well. So this is a matter where a universal application of a court decision might not be possible. In fact, is not possible at a technical level, but other measures, as I said, and I repeat, will be found to give these institutions the assistance they require. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. Mhlomphehi Kgoshi Hlenge.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, the fact of the matter here is that our country have been plunged into this serious problem of load shedding, which has not only crippled our economy, but also have costed people's lives and livelihood. As the minister presiding over state-owned entities, in particular Eskom, I am very proud of this legacy, that if it took even courts to force you to exempt critical institutions such as the one listed, which unfortunately you are telling us here that you are appealing, and that on its own shows how much you don't care about our people.
The Honorable the Minister.
Thank you, Chairperson. Once again, Honorable Buthelezi chooses to engage in politics rather than focus on the answer that I've just given, which is that if there's a willingness to understand the nature of the transmission system, the 325,000 kilometers of wires that connect all of these facilities to the generating plants that Eskom has available to it at this point in time, and that it is not possible with one stroke of the pen, whoever the pen might be belonging to actually solve the problem that we have, either in respect of load shedding, which I've addressed before, where there is a concrete plan being implemented, or some of the difficulties that some of these facilities are currently facing. So the simple answer is that, and I wish to repeat the answer in case Honorable Buthelezi has difficulty in appreciating it, and that is that there are technical evaluations taking place. Secondly, that some of the measures taken in respect of some of the hospitals preceded the court actions that he is making reference to. In other words, they took place before the court actions were even heard by the court itself, and the court determined the outcome of those particular actions. And we will continue as a government to ensure that these essential facilities for our students, for our patients at hospitals, and other important service centers are supplied with electricity wherever it is possible, either today or in the near future, in one form or another. And this is, in fact, because we do care about our people, and we do want to ensure that they are not compromised in any way as far as the services they receive from this government is concerned. Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Makaka.
Eh? Find a moment. Thank you, Chair. I'm sorry for the delay. While the harmful effects of load shedding warrant some restorative justice through litigation, what are some of the shortcomings of the court's ruling that the government, through the DPE, should exempt schools, hospitals, clinics, and political stations from load shedding? And has the DPE ever conducted a cost-benefit analysis of this ruling to ascertain whether the cost outweigh the benefits or vice versa? Thank you.
The Honorable the Minister.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks to Honorable Makaka for his question. Excuse me. As I pointed out, the cost-benefit analysis, not in monetary terms, but in practical terms is quite clearly that if we switch off all of these facilities immediately, everyone who's supplied by the grid will be switched off as well. So that's the cost. The benefit of approaching it the way I've described it earlier on to Honorable Buthelezi, which is where careful evaluations are done about exactly where in the local grid these facilities such as hospitals and schools are actually receiving their electricity from, and is it possible to actually isolate that particular facility from the rest of the environment in which that facility finds itself, is a much more constructive approach. A number of facilities, as I pointed out, have already been attended to in this particular regard and are receiving if you like, the exemption that Eskom is in a position to provide. And the implications of the court action, as I said, or the court decision, and which is the reason why it is being appealed by government, not just by our department or Eskom, is that it's impractical to implement that decision in the way it has been enunciated, and that some variation of the decision must be made, which takes account of the reality that I have just described, i.e., and that is how all of these institutions are integrated into a single system, some of which can be isolated, these facilities, some of which might not be able to be isolated, and where those facilities cannot be isolated, can they be provided with other alternatives, such as generators and other kinds of equipment that will assist that particular facility in terms of the need that they actually have. So in sum, Chairperson and Honorable Kalka, what we are doing as government is taking each of these requirements very seriously and conscientiously working through them so that we can provide the maximum benefit in terms of electricity supply to these facilities. Thank you.
The Honorable Kachalia.
Thank you. The appeal by the minister demonstrates the different world ministers and us ordinary mortals live in. Load shedding is clearly a foreign concept to the minister as a beneficiary of the 50 million spent to make sure that ministers and their deputies' generators are delivering their electricity. What makes the minister so special? While a similar exemption for our scholars in schools, patients in hospitals, and police who protect our community are opposed. Surely this isn't right in this elite ANC who care little for ordinary folk. Surely the minister, at the very least, should publicly forego his privileges. The question is, will he do so?
The Honorable the Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Once again, Mr. Honorable Kachalia is on the wrong sports field. He should be playing cricket, but he thinks he's playing soccer, but that's a different matter. So firstly, I am not exempt from load shedding. Personally, I live in my own house in Pretoria, nor is the premises that I occupy in Cape Town exempt from load shedding either. I am not provided by government with a generator at all, and I don't have to forego anything publicly because the government doesn't provide anything for me in this particular regard. So that's why I say Honorable Kachalia gets it wrong all the time. And what can one do but feel sorry for him? Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable who is represent of.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chair. Minister, you recently indicated that you will challenge a court directive that hospitals must be exempted from load shedding. What informed your decision to challenge this court ruling? What interventions will you then make to ensure that key public services are not disrupted by load shedding? And will you take responsibility for the loss of life incurred as a result of medical procedures that cannot be performed because of load shedding? Thank you very much.
Thank you. The Honorable the Minister.
Chairperson, I didn't quite get the name of the honorable member who.
It's Honorable Kaiser.
Honorable Faisal, firstly, I think we all understand the context, I hope, in which load shedding is occurring at the moment. There have been mishaps historically where power stations or new facilities to generate power were not built in time, or where they were built, they underwent huge cost overruns, time overruns, and other forms of malfeasance as well. So load shedding is a reality in South Africa because Eskom is unable to provide all of the electricity needs of this country at this point in time. And I've explained earlier on as well that load shedding is the ultimate step that a systems operator takes if other measures, which I listed earlier as well, do not adequately meet the supply shortages that the demand is confronted with. As far as why is this court decision being appealed? Because South Africa's judicial system does allow for appeals, as does the Constitution. Secondly, I gave the reason already that some of the decisions or the judgment of the court is impractical and can't be implemented as it stands. And thirdly, I've also said that wherever possible, there's a system in place and a program in place to exempt some of these facilities from load shedding, such as hospitals, and many of them have that provided for them already. Others are still undergoing the kind of technical assessment that I talked about. And finally, where it is not possible to disconnect the facility from the grid to which that facility is connected, other forms of assistance will actually be provided as well. And one hopes that whether it is in a hospital or elsewhere, no loss of life takes place, because that is not our intention, and that is not the kind of imposition that we want to see
Thank you.
in society. Thank you.
Thank you. We move honorable members to question number 252, asked by the Honorable Malimaja to the Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition. The Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and thank you for the question. I should start by noting that the DTIC group itself has identified 8 actions to support firms in the economy and consumers in addressing the energy challenges. The department has also included a number of energy targets in its annual plan. On the 14th of March this year, I announced a 1.3 billion rand package of support, and we're looking at ways to expand that further. The DTIC group entities that are doing work on energy includes the department itself, the IDC, the NEF, the Competition Commission, and the National Regulator of Compulsory Specifications. The IDC has 5 programs. The first is a concessionary funding facility to energy services companies to enable them to provide finance energy solutions to SMMEs to reduce or eliminate the impact of load shedding. The second is a working capital facility to recover production backlogs, inventory restocking, and raw material purchases, as well as certain operational expenses, including wages and salaries, rent, and so on. The third is a township and rural grant, which provides funding to support townships, small town and rural enterprises that are affected by load shedding. The fourth one is a facility to support localization of key components. It's aimed at supporting the working capital needs of manufacturers or assemblers of key components like solar PV panels, inverters, and batteries. And the final one that is going through the process of approval by the IDC is a funding scheme to fast-track utility scale generation, where the IDC will partner with credible developers who have shovel-ready, commercial-scale projects ready to accelerate the development of the projects. The NEF itself has set aside an amount of 150 million rand to implement funding of alternative energy solutions at reduced interest rates, while blending the funding with grants that's been provided by other funding partners. As an example of this, the funding of solar energy solutions is provided to entities at a concessional price. The DTIC itself, through the Energy One-Stop Shop, is working across government and with stakeholders such as Eskom and municipalities to facilitate and unblock energy-related challenges to support companies' productions. The other measures I've announced during the DTIC budget vote, which include the use of low-energy light bulbs and the exemptions given to companies from certain provisions of the Competition Act. This allows small firms, among others, to collaborate and work together on energy supply. In addition, honourable members, we're working through Invest South Africa and the IDC to attract more investors into the energy space. The visit by President Ramaphosa to Saudi Arabia last year highlighted a project announced at the investment conference in which an investor is building a 100-megawatt plant in the Northern Cape with up to 12 hours of thermal storage, will allow the project to deliver and to dispatch reliable energy even when the sun is not shining. Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Malemacha.
Thank you, House Chair. Minister, what measures has the department adopted to ensure that large corporations do not abuse their dominance by abnormally hiking the basic food prices to the detriment of ordinary working class and poor South Africans? Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable the Minister.
The Honorable Malemacha for that question. I could point to 3 initiatives. The first is monitoring what is happening to food prices. And the competition authorities have looked for the last number of years during the COVID period and beyond at particular basic foodstuffs, what the markups are, what the prices of producers are and the prices of retailers. And they publish quite a detailed report on it. Where they find that there are excessive prices as defined in the legislation, that can provide a basis for prosecution of companies for excessive pricing. The second initiative would be to monitor what is happening in food markets themselves, the structure of the market, whether there are new players coming in, whether small businesses are permitted to come in, or whether dominant firms restrict access by their market conduct. The Competition Commission has launched a fresh produce market inquiry that will be looking at all of these things in the food supply chain. And the decisions that they make, the findings that they have, now will have the force of law. In other words, it will be mandatory to be implemented. In some cases, it will go through a process of confirmation by the Competition Tribunal. The third area that I'd point to is by looking at the impact of government decisions on prices in the food sector. For example, we have trade remedies and trade adjustments that are made. They include food products. And in those instances, we engage with those firms affected to ensure that they make suitable commitments not to increase prices unduly if tariffs are either increased or reduced. So those are some of the measures that we are taking as a department to deal with food prices. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. We now proceed to the Honorable Hendricks.
Thank you very much, Honorable House Chair. Many small farmers and business suffer tremendous losses during load shedding and face an uncertain future for as long as we continue to have load shedding. The Al Jamar Constituency Office in Umdowli in KwaZulu-Natal has received 50 distress calls for help from villages on Ishanti Farm in Bremer, Kumbabili Farm, Kenterton, Walwami, Sizela, more villages in Makoweni, in Paul East, in the Drakensberg, in the Western Cape, Mapami Village in the Eastern Cape, Shulavani Village in the Popo, and villages in Kwakwa in the Free State. Food prices have tripled. In Kwakwa, they need a bridge, they need a ball in the Popo. How can the minister assist them? Thank you very much.
Thank you. The Honorable the Minister.
I'd like to thank Honorable Hendricks for the question. And the question points to how pervasive the challenges are that we're going to have to manage until we're able to get a normalization of the supply of energy. So I'm going to suggest, Honorable Hendricks, that my office reaches out to your office and get details of this. Some of these matters would fall within the mandate of other departments, but we'd like to see where there are small firms to alert them to the facilities that the DTIC group has available and to see what we can do to connect them and to link them up with other departments that may have a facility available. But I think it highlights the importance of ensuring that the voices of the rural poor, of communities, of villages that are not often in the media mainstream are also taken into account as we roll out measures to try to mitigate the impact of load shedding while we stabilize and improve the supply of energy. Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Moruti Mishra. Reverend Mishra. Is he on the platform? Sure.
He was on the platform. Could I ask you just to hold it over to the end of the question?
Okay.
Otherwise, I'll take it.
I will
Thank you.
come back. Let them just check. You see that? We now go to the Honorable Briet.
Thank you, Chairperson. Honourable Minister, taking into account the detrimental impact of load shedding on agriculture, as also stated in the original question, the Minister of Agriculture has established a task force to investigate the impact of load shedding on agriculture and agro-processing enterprises. Taking into account the role your department plays with regards to these matters, or shall we say enterprises, have you been brought on board with the task force? And if not, will you engage the Department of Agriculture to join this task force? I thank you.
The Honorable the Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Briet. And I think the question points, like the previous one from Honorable Hendricks, to quite important sections of the community that are affected by the challenges that we face. And the agriculture sector is important because we do need to ensure food security. And so I work very closely with Minister Didiza, and her team and the DTIC collaborates in general on these issues, but in particular on two master plans. That is the poultry master plan, and the other one is the sugar master plan. And some of the stakeholders there have brought the challenges to our attention. And I think the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development is leading, but at the same time, we're also working very actively with them in addressing these needs. In addition to the upstream part, which is the farming side, we're also looking to see what can be done to the food processors, the factories that take the raw material from the farm and process it in a form that can go to the retailers. These are all vital parts of our food supply chain, and they all deserve careful attention as we deal with these matters. I thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Mishra, Moruti, Uwile.
My apologies, Honorable Chair. A recent article by the Conversation noted that our power crisis will likely continue until 2025, and blackouts could take 5 years to phase out. Agri-SA's CEO, Christo van der Riede, has also noted that given the magnitude of the crisis, the Afro Energy Funding Scheme proposed by Agriculture Minister would not be enough to mitigate the impact of load shedding on our farms and food security. What I want to know, Honorable Minister, is that in addition to this Afro Energy Funding Scheme that has been proposed, and we have been told that it would not be enough, I want to know if the minister and her department, and his department, my apology, have other measures and packages of support that the minister announced today that will protect farmers and other small businesses from bankruptcy and closure of their businesses, which obviously would lead to poverty and more suffering. I thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable the Minister.
Well, thank you very much to Honorable and to Reverend Mushwe for the question. I would like to respond by, again, reiterating that we have a number of funding mechanisms that are available that are, in this case, could be utilized in the food supply chain. But in addition to that, Honorable Mushwe, we also have published a set of exemptions from certain provisions of the Competition Act that farmers and their customers can utilize in working together and collaborating in energy-related matters. Under our competition law, typically competitors are not entitled to work with each other on any of the matters. They should go out and compete in order to keep prices low. But we've recognized the challenges that are faced by many sectors of the economy, which includes, as Honorable Breed and yourself have pointed, to the agriculture one. And Honorable Malimache has made the same point. So these facilities are available. We are going to have to work quite closely with industry, because even with this additional facility, it will not be on its own sufficient, given the large number of companies. And so that's why we're strengthening the efforts to support the various ministers, Ramagopa, Minister Gordon, and Minister Mantashe, in their different areas in addressing the overall challenges with energy. The sooner we make progress with that to the point where the level of load shedding reduces and eventually is eliminated, the sooner we'd be able to see the bounce back across the economy. So it requires mitigation in the meantime, while we focus on fixing the problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable members, I know it's not usual that we do this in the middle of the order, but I just want to make you aware that 4 new members from the Economic Freedom Fighters were sworn in by the Speaker late this afternoon. They will be formally announced tomorrow at the start of the sitting. You are welcome. We will officially announce you tomorrow. Who's that now? Don't do that, honorable member, wherever you are. Now the next question is the question to the Minister of Public Enterprises, question 274. Asked by the Honorable Kachalia. The Minister.
Thank you, Chairperson. The information I'm providing is from Eskom. The EAF for the financial year 2024, as at the 29th of May 2023, was 52.63%. This reflects the unavailability of several large units, as well as the continued poor performance of older coal-fired power stations as a result of many years of poor maintenance. However, intensive efforts are underway to ensure that Kusile units 1, 2, and 3 come online by December 2023, which will reduce unplanned load shedding by about 1,500 megawatts for the last 3 months of the financial year. This achievement, together with the targeted improvement of plant performance and reliability across Eskom's fleet through the Energy Recovery Plan, will make an EAF of 65% possible by March 2024. Efforts to reduce and ultimately end load shedding require us to work together to drive interventions both on the supply side, increasing available megawatts, and demand side, reducing peak demand. Eskom remains committed to increasing the amount of available generation with a specific focus over the winter period by firstly reducing unplanned load losses in the generation fleet, secondly managing planned maintenance to the minimum level required over winter, as I indicated earlier, and thirdly maximizing the utilization of open cycle gas turbines, which use diesel, to curb load shedding at peak times. Our aim is to limit unplanned load losses to 15,000 megawatts over winter, in line with Eskom's winter plans. This past week has been an improvement in the availability of the fleet with unplanned load losses currently at around 15,900 megawatts. This has enabled a reduction in the severity of load shedding, which we hope to maintain in the coming weeks. Several further actions are underway through the National Energy Crisis Committee. The private sector, through Business for South Africa, has mobilized technical skills and capacity to support Eskom's generation plan. Support teams will be deployed at Matla, Kriel, Majuba, and Kendal, and technical support will also be provided for diesel supply chain optimization to increase the load factor of the open cycle gas turbines. In addition, Eskom is implementing a national demand management program, which I referred to earlier on, and the program follows a performance contracting approach with an incentive of 3 million rands per megawatt for demand reduction achieved during specific periods. Contracting is being finalized for close on to 400 megawatts through the Standard Offer Emergency Generation Program, and this additional capacity comes from the Kelvin Power Station. Progress is being made in bringing online additional generation capacity through other forms of regulatory reforms that will enable the private sector investment to be accelerated. By ensuring leadership stability, rebuilding skills and capability within Eskom, partnering with industry and driving implementation of various measures in the Energy Action Plan, we will stabilize our energy supply and reduce the severity and frequency of load shedding sooner rather than later. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. The first supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Kachalia.
Thank you. That's all very well, Minister. But as you know, 254 billion has been earmarked for debt relief to Eskom. We also witness a phenomenal diesel burn, so high that it projects a shortfall in the 30 billion rand budget for diesel in this financial year. This makes us wonder if another bailout is in the pipeline, as the conditionalities attached to the 254 billion transfer won't support such profligate diesel spending. Add to this the eye-watering loss posted by the company, the largest to date, and then there's the endorsement of the rehash of NECOM's action plan by the project managing Minister of Electricity. In short, Eskom is in a far worse position under this minister's watch. As a chemist, Mr. Minister, I look forward to an accurate balancing of the elements, not an alchemist's version, involving where the buck stops and who will take responsibility for this rank failure. One wonders if it is he, the project manager, or Mr. Mantashe, who will implement measures to fix this mess, or will the buck be passed from see no evil to hear no evil to do no evil. The question is whether he can differentiate between intelligence and evidence by endorsing the immediate suspension of the high-ranking Eskom executive and others as the police compile damning evidence that reveals their part in allegedly engineering and sabotaging various power stations, resulting in breakdowns. It seems as if Mr. Director was right, no?
Thank you, Honorable Member. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you. At last, Honorable Kachalia has got to the question. Whoever is identified as a person who has to offer explanations in respect of any form of alleged malfeasance must be suspended, must be investigated, and must be dealt with in accordance with the outcomes of the investigation. That is the responsibility of management, and our job as the oversight ministry is to make sure that that happens, and it happens efficiently. The difference between intelligence and information, I'll leave to your lexicon. But as far as we are concerned, Chairperson, there is a clear plan. That plan is public. The plan has the support of the private sector and other sectors in society, including the trade union movement. We are serious about implementing the plan, and the Minister of Electricity will give you and the public more information on the progress that is being made in this particular regard. But there are several work streams that are coordinated under the National Energy Crisis Committee, which is chaired now by Minister Ramakopa, and they frequently publish the outcomes of some of the work that they're doing and the progress that they are making as well. So we are confident that we, as government, are beginning to get on top of the issue and will produce the results that are necessary, which were falling short of our expectations in the recent past. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The Honourable Gumede. Second supplementary question.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Minister, for your response. Given that Eskom's energy availability factor, EAF, has been declining for 17 years now, thereby implying that it is impossible to return the EAF to sustainable levels within 1 year. What would it take for Eskom to repair and rehabilitate the underperforming power stations to improve the EAF in relation to the 6 targeted plans to move away from stage 6 load shedding? And what option does Eskom have at the moment in terms of improving the EAF in the current winter period of a high demand?
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thanks to Honourable Gumede for his question. Of course, the final answer in relation to what is to be done in relation to the problems that Eskom faces is a multidimensional one. It is firstly to get the current plants to work more efficiently, which I'll return to. Secondly, to add more megawatts as quickly as possible to our electricity system, in particular through IPPs of one sort or another. Thirdly, it is to improve the skills, the experience base, and the operational capabilities of people who are operating at the plant itself. Fourthly, it is to catch in action, if you like, those who are undermining these efforts, and there are many of them both outside Eskom and perhaps inside Eskom as well, and to stop the kind of things that they are undertaking, which is interfering with Eskom operating at its optimum level. Sixth, it is obviously the balance between supply and demand, and the manner in which we as the public contribute to this as well. At a technical level, at Matla, which can produce up to 3,450 megawatts, at 11% EAF improvement is being targeted through actions focused specifically on improving coal quality. At Creel, 2,850 megawatt station, the target is a 25% improvement in the EAF by addressing 700 megawatts of partial load losses relating to the poor condition of the cooling towers. At Majuba, which could produce up to 3,822 megawatts, a 12% EAF improvement is being targeted through addressing the 1,200 megawatts of partial load losses associated with bag filters. At Kendall, a 3,840 megawatt station, another 25% improvement is being targeted, which has problems ranging from ash handling through to air heaters. And the importance of the private sector becoming partners in these processes at each of these power stations, including the OCGTs.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister.
Has increased our capacity. Thank you, Chair.
The third supplementary question will be asked by a person taking over for the Honourable Maudwa.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Honourable Aris Solteki. Minister, would it not be fair to start that this query is both misplaced and directed towards the wrong individual, given our collective understanding that there isn't a precise science behind electricity generation today that can confidently predict the EAF? The evidence is clear in the sporadic suspension and reinstatement of load shedding, often within a matter of hours or even minutes. However, the pertinent question perhaps should be this: is it accurate that Mr. Ramaphosa approached you with a proposition to shift Eskom entirely under the purview of the so-called dancing minister of electricity as a measure
Thank
to
you, Honorable
streamline
Member.
reporting lines and orchestrate a coherent plan currently non-existent to
Thank
tackle
you,
load
Honorable
shedding,
Member.
and you reject this idea. Thank you.
The Honorable Minister.
Honorable Chair, thank you very much. There is somewhat of a science in engineering. And as I explained several times this afternoon, the systems operator is the one center of expertise that South Africa is privileged to have, which ensures that there is this balance between demand and supply, and load shedding is a risk mitigation measure that is available to the systems operator when all else is not contributing to the right supply and demand balance that is actually required. The fluctuating level of load shedding is one that frustrates all of us. And that is a consequence of the volatility in the plants themselves and the lack of predictability about whether you will have a boiler tube leak today, tomorrow, this afternoon, or tonight. And all of those factors then contribute to the fluctuating nature of load shedding, in addition to the fact that there are contractors out there who are responsible for repairing units that have faults of one kind or another, who promise that in a day or two it will the unit will return to operations, and then there are inordinate delays. These are all matters that are being dealt with in a very coherent way under the Energy Action Plan, and with intensive attention from Minister Ramakokwa himself. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. The last supplementary question is from the Honorable Swart.
Thank you, House Chair. Arising from your response, Honorable Minister.
Honorable Swart, there's a point of order. Please take a seat. Honorable Member, what's your point of order?
Okay, thank you very much. I rise in terms of Rule 84, whereby Honorable Member, my hand has been up for some time. Unfortunately, you couldn't see me. Where Honorable Member of EFF referred to Honorable Minister of Electricity as a dancing minister, which is very much unparliamentary and offensive language.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Yes, I will. Thank you. Honorable members. Honorable members, a point of order has been raised, and I want to request the House to observe the rules that we use in the House and refrain from referring to members in disrespectful languages. It should not happen. Let us try by all means to allow our debate to flow in a respectful way. Thank you very much. We now go to
Thank you, House Chair.
the Honorable Swartz.
Thank you. Arising from your response, Honorable Minister, one of the important measures needed to ameliorate load shedding is, of course, preventing criminality and sabotage at Eskom, such as we've seen coal mafia, etc. And while the ACDP fully appreciates the devastating impact that state capture and corruption play, it seems that criminality is continuing if one has regard to recent allegations about an Eskom executive. Honorable Minister, you also indicated earlier that progress is being made with funds being recovered and the NPA enrolling cases against certain Eskom officials. And we've had this discussion in the past. But do you, Honorable Minister, believe that more can and should be done to fight criminality at Eskom? And if so, as the ministry is the oversight in this regard, what can one do in this regard where you're able to address these issues of criminality? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks to Honorable Swart, who is an old campaigner, not in age terms, but for Eskom. There's absolutely no doubt that whilst there's been a great deal of progress in relation to tackling the question of criminality and sabotage and abuse, to put it mildly, of the procurement system, that progress is not enough to stop every single soul that is within the employ of Eskom or those who relate to Eskom in any way commercially from stopping that activity. And whether it is the coal mafia or the contracting mafia or whatever the case might be, and whether they are mafias or syndicates or individuals is quite irrelevant to the point. But there's no doubt that activity is continuing on one scale or another. And there's also no doubt that far more intensive action and attention has to be given both within Eskom itself and by Eskom itself, where it is within their powers to undertake preventative action, but also from the law enforcement authorities in South Africa. Some of that is under the coordination of the National Energy Crisis Committee, and there's a huge amount of progress there in terms of the number of cases that have been opened or charges that have been laid, cases that have been opened, people that have appeared in court, people that have been sentenced in court. But quite clearly, if that kind of progress can be intensified, we'll see less of the malfeasance that we've been familiar with in Eskom for some time to come. But I'm optimistic that if we put our heads together and work together, both as government, but as civil society as well, and the business and labor sectors, we can overcome this challenge. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. We'll go to question 253, which unfortunately has been cancelled. I have been informed that the minister.
Speaker.
Is there a point of order? What is the point of order, Honorable Member?
Honorable Speaker, it's my first day and I'm offended by the fact that am I protected?
Order, honorable members.
Am I protected, Speaker?
Honorable members, order, please. Order, honorable members.
Am I protected, Speaker?
Order, honorable members. Honorable members. Order, honorable members. Order, honorable members.
Speaker.
Order, honorable members.
I wanted to get clarity.
Honorable member, honorable member, can you hold for a second?
Asidlali kwaito la.
Ayisuka wena ikwaito waziwa wodlala ikwaito wena ungazosijwayela kahle.
Learn to listen. That's why you will never solve electricity problem. You don't listen. Learn to listen. Learn to listen. It honorable members, please, quiet. Aibo. Learn to listen. Honorable members. Honorable members. This is a bit unusual. Could you please hold? Could you please allow me to continue with the work and the House to continue? Thank you very much. Member, I note you, I'm noting you, Honorable Singh. The member has taken an oath today. And the previous chairperson did mention that there were 4 members from the new members from the EFF who will be honorable members. Don't assist me, please. And the new members will be announced tomorrow, but they have taken an oath. They are members of this House. So they are entitled to do whatever that is supposed to be done in the House. Please allow the member to say what he wants to say. I will go to the Honorable Singh.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable Chair, I think it is. I'm saying, okay. Honorable Chair, I think it's very, very unfair that we have to drown out a maiden that's come to this House for the first time. We haven't even heard what the person has said.
Thank you.
Oh, I appreciate your ruling.
Thank you.
You need to hear the member, Honorable Chair.
Honorable members, we are all entitled to participate in this House.
Yes.
What is your point of order, Honorable Member?
Honorable Speaker, I wanted to find out what is unparliamentary by saying dancing minister, because what is the point of order in saying dancing minister? Because I'm a dancer and I fed my family through dancing.
When you fed your family, minister is not like the when you fed your family like that.
It is unparliamentary.
I sit down.
I feel offended. I feel offended, Speaker. It's a profession to dance, Speaker. That's like being a doctor, it's a profession.
It's a profession for you, so leave our minister alone.
To feed my
Profession
children
for when?
into something that is unparliamentary. I do not comprehend.
Point. Honorable Deputy Chief Whip, Honorable Sangwa, Honorable Macpherson.
Thank you very much.
Honorable Khadebe. Honorable Zagota.
Thank you very much, Honorable House Chairperson. While we appreciate that we have a dancer in the House, we must also learn the rules, because when we are done with a certain matter and moved forward, we don't go back to that. When you want to interject, you must do it at the same time while we are dealing with that matter. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Honorable, I'll make the ruling after the Honorable Macpherson. Honorable Sangwa.
Maybe Chair. Thank you very much, Chair. I wonder if I can maybe come back when you've made a ruling, because mine is a separate matter from what's currently on the table.
Thank you. Honorable Sangwa. Honorable Macpherson.
House Chair, we've spent 15 minutes entertaining dances and points of orders and all sorts of things. And there's nothing worse than the dancer who is out of step on the stage. Please, can we get back to the business of the day, which is the questions, because we're running out of time.
That's not a point of order, Honorable Macpherson. Then I'm going back to your reply. Can I respond to your member, Honorable Nsangweni? Honorable Nsangweni. Honorable Nsangweni.
Thank you very much, House Chair. You know, we can't help it if some members can't dance and they want to having issues with people that can properly
Thank you.
and assert on a stage.
Thank you very much.
Help them with that. And we fully
Thank you very much, Honorable Nsangweni.
so we can't help them. They must go to
Thank you very much, Honorable Nsangweni. Honorable members. Honorable members, for the benefit of all members, Rule 92 says a member may raise the point of order at any time during the proceedings of the House. A point of order should be raised at that particular moment or immediately after an objection is made. There's nothing wrong with that. But the honorable member who has raised the point of order should be aware of that. But also, the member is calling himself a dancer. He has called himself a dancer, and but it would be wrong. It would be unparliamentary. It would be unparliamentary for other members to call each other dancers when they're not dancers. But if a member decides to call himself or herself, for that matter, a dancer, we cannot object to that. Shall we continue, honorable members?
Chairperson, Chair.
Honorable Sangwa.
Chairperson, thank you very much. I suspect, Chairperson, I suspect I may be guilty of the point I'm about to raise in the context of what I'm about to say, but I think nonetheless it's important. Question session is the only item which is given a specific time allocation. And this afternoon, there has been heightened filibustering, and it eats into the time of the question and answer session. I would like you, Chair, and the other presiding officers to look into the management of time, particularly the interruption of points of orders which eat into the time. For example, when the first question was called this afternoon, there was points of order which took 13 minutes away from question session. So I'm really asking you, Chair, because the other presiding officer was in the chair when I was raising, but a lot of time into what can you just keep quiet? I'm not talking to you.
Honorable Sangwini.
Of you trying to.
Honorable Sangwini.
You can't shout at her. You can't shout at her. House. And we won't allow you. Can't shout at her. I'm entitled to a point of order, like your member was. Stop shouting. Stop shouting. Actually, stop shouting. No. You're wasting time. I never said it's not his right.
No, the children must get out of this parliament. Honestly, they must get out, Chair.
Honorable Sangwa. Honorable Sangwa.
This link is the
Honorable Sangwa.
Honorable Sangwa, all right. Abantwana mabaphume la eParliament.
Honorable Sangwa, I've noted you, Chief Whip. Honorable Sangwa.
My apologies.
Honorable Sangwa, could you please take a seat? I've noted you, Honorable Chief Whip. Honorable Sangwini. I regard that which we have just done now as a gross misconduct. You cannot do what you have just done now. I therefore want to warn you that if you're going to continue with this kind of behavior, I would request you to leave the house, and I hope you're not going to do it. You can continue, Honorable Chairman.
My apologies. It's just that I fundamentally believe that listening is also a skill. I did not question points of order. I said what is a problem is eating into the point of order when it is raised and therefore eating to the time. And I was not citing one member. I raised a whole range of them. So, but my apologies nonetheless, Chairperson, for how I reacted to that interruption. Nonetheless, Chair, what I'm asking and the presiding officers is to protect the time of question session because it's the one opportunity that is available for members to actually interact with the executive.
Thank you very much. Point taken, Honorable Sengwa. It will be looked at. It will definitely be looked at. The Honorable Chief of the Opposition.
House Chair, I would like to just quickly draw your attention to the honorable member who's sitting right next to Honorable Tembekwayo. He has repeatedly been shouting into his microphone. I can appreciate that he may be new and does not know the rules, but in this house, we don't howl into the mic, and that he should be called to order, please.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, one thing that should always respect is the decorum of the House. And the decorum of the House depends on how we behave ourselves as members. Could you please give this House the respectable tone that it deserves? Honorable Ntangwini.
Thank you very much, House Chair. I'm not going to make any apology because House Chair, we are all members of this House. And if chairpersons and the chief whips are wanting to act biased on their approaches and wanting to take a swipe at the EFF members, they're doing that at their own.
Honorable
No,
Ntangwini.
but why you interrupt, Chair? You have let him speak with all due respect, sir. Give me a platform to speak.
Honorable Ntangwini. Honorable Ntangwini, make your point of order, and please do so in a manner that would also allow me to come back to you and allow the House to go ahead with its work.
Thank you, sir. You allow other members to speak the points of orders the way they want, taking a swipe at the EFF the way they want. But if the EFF responds, and look how they react, and when the EFF responds, you only respond to the EFF and interject us time and time again. Now that won't be tolerated. You continue with that behavior as well, House Chair.
Thank you very much,
That's
Honorable.
disrespectful when I salapancho and
Thank you very much, Honorable Ntangwini. Honorable Ntangwini. Honorable Ntangwini.
Chairperson.
Honorable Ntangwini, can I address you? It will help you to listen when I address you, it will help you. Honorable Ntangwini, the kind of behavior that you have demonstrated as the Honorable Sengwa was making a point of order is totally unacceptable. And I kindly request you to refrain from behaving like that, because that creates chaos in the House. I mean, we are not there for that purpose. We all have a responsibility to making sure that our people out there get the benefit of what we discuss as the members of this House. So the kind of behavior that you have demonstrated is totally unacceptable, not only from you, from any other member who can do that for that matter. So I request you again, please don't do that. By the way, where were we before we went? Thank you very much. Thank you very much. At least you can still afford to smile. Thank you so much. Honorable members, we were at 2:53. And I have been informed that the minister and deputy minister are not available to answer questions today. The minister requested for the question to stand over. Therefore, the question to the Minister of Small Business Development will stand over in terms of rules 144(1)A and 144(2). Question number 249 has been asked by the Honorable Heron to the Minister of Transport. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, House Chairperson, honorable members. Let me thank Honorable Heron for the question. The integration of services referred to on Section 40 of the National Land Transport Act is being achieved through the implementation of the integrated public transport networks at various cities. The implementation may not be as fast as anticipated due to various reasons, inclusive of associated insufficient funding, municipalities' lack of capacity, and delays in negotiations with affected operators. The second part of the question regarding the future of BRT, as per the question that is bus rapid transport, BRTs will continue to be part of implementing integrated public transport networks in high-density corridors, but also it will be implemented along with other integrated modes of transport in corridors with lower urban densities. This is in line with Section 54H of the National Land Transport Act. I thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. The first supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Harron.
Thank you, House Chair, and thank you, Minister. I think it's fair to say, Minister, that Section 40, 41, and 42 of the National Land Transport Act are intended to expand public transport network and services and to make them more affordable and interoperable. They're also intended to facilitate the transformation of our public transport system by providing bus operating opportunities to the taxi owners. If we don't implement all three sections of the Act, then we will strangle those bus operating opportunities for the taxi industry. As it is, we have, as I understand it, 3 MyCity bus taxi operating contracts coming to an end in the next year, and 1 Rea Vaya contract coming to an end in the next year because their 12 years are up. So how does the Minister expect to sustain the support of the taxi industry for the rollout of BRT, giving up their permits, if we don't create contracting opportunities using the bus subsidized contracts to provide those opportunities, if they don't go out on tender? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Harron. The bus subsidy contracts are managed by provinces. The IPTN aims at ensuring the integration of all modes of transport. And as you will be aware that during the time when we established this, it is important that all stakeholders are taken on board, including the already operating bus companies as well as the taxi industries, so that when the BRT starts to operate, every stakeholder is in agreement and in support of that. This is based on research that has to happen before we commence with the implementation of IPTN or including bus rapid transport. Indeed, on issues related to operating licenses, as you have asked the question, the provinces are attending to that, but also it's a matter that we are taking into, in fact, as the Department of Transport. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Second supplementary question is asked by the Honorable Ramadwa.
Thank you very much, House Chair, and thank you, Honorable Minister, for your response. In how many metros is the bus rapid transit system operational? And how many more metros will the bus rapid transit system be extended in this financial year? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ramadwa. There are 10 metros and municipalities receiving the Public Transport Network Grant for their integrated public transport networks. Of that 10, 8 municipalities receiving the PTNG are operating services. And these, they include Johannesburg, Ekurhuleni, Tshwane, Polokwane, and I think Rustenburg, Cape Town, George and Nelson Mandela Bay. Mangaung, as you may be aware, Honorable Member, it plans to launch this, it's BRT or IPTN this financial year. Cape Town, George, Johannesburg, Ekurhuleni, and Tshwane, Polokwane, and Rustenburg are all planning to extend their services within the next 3 years. eThekwini and Mangaung are not yet operational, as I've indicated, and the 3 suspended municipalities, that is Msunduzi, Mbombela, as well as Buffalo City, are working on readmission into the grant. And as the Department of Transport, we are trying to assist them. But of course, they must meet the requirements for them to be readmitted. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. The third supplementary question is from the Honorable Hansinger.
Thank you, Chairperson. Minister, in fact, there are 13 participating cities. So, Chairperson, thank you for the opportunity. Minister, amongst the 13 BRT participating cities, more than 50 billion rand have been spent over the past 12 years. Over this period, about half of these cities show an expenditure ability of less than 50%, with most of the capital being used to pay consultants, with little advancement in infrastructure, least of all moving buses. Minister, will you have this audited? Will you check what the 50 billion rand was spent on, and will you act on what you find?
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. Wherever and whenever we think that something wrong has happened, we don't hesitate to investigate. For instance, we have issued a forensic investigation in Mangaung, a municipality, as well as I think, I don't want to mention the second because I don't have it in my head, but on 2 of them, we already have a report about Mangaung, which we are processing, and we are expecting on the second one also to receive a report. So yes, where we think that things are not happening as expected and where we are suspecting maladministration and maluse of finances, we don't hesitate to action that. So yes, we're doing that. We do believe that there are municipalities that are implementing IPTN, including BRT, better than others. And we're expecting that those that are still coming up, they will learn from those that are implementing this very well. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The last supplementary question is from the Honorable Stoller.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable Minister, what is the status of negotiations with the various industry stakeholders, such as tax industry, to full support and feed into the bus rapid transport system, with special reference to the Go Durban project? Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Stoller. The Honorable Minister.
Negotiations with different stakeholders are at different levels. For instance, where we're already implementing the IPTN, including BRT, the negotiations will have actually been concluded. Where we have not started, the negotiations might still be continuing. With regards to eThekwini municipality in particular, there are challenges there. And we have, as the Department of Transport, instructed the eThekwini Metro to continue negotiating, particularly with the taxi industry, because the impasse is between the metro and the taxi industry. We look at the framework and the NLTA as the Department of Transport. Good as we allow metros and municipalities to come up with some, good suggestions, but those must be in line with the Act. When whatever proposal is not in line with the Act, we can't support that. So yes, with the eThekwini municipality and metro, there are issues, particularly between the metro and the taxi industry. We are trying to intervene so that a solution can be found as quickly as possible. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Question 254 has been asked by the Honorable M. Lisuma to the Minister of Transport. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, House Chair. Thank you, Honorable Lisuma, for the question. Shosholoza Mail is currently operating high peak season services on 2 routes, that is Johannesburg to East London and Johannesburg to Musina, having resumed services in December 2021. The other routes were suspended due to operational and infrastructure challenges. The plans to restore Shosholoza Mail services can be categorized into short as well as medium-term periods. That is, under short term, we plan to ensure that there's availability of diesel locomotives to run services currently. But also we plan to renegotiate access and haulage fees with Transnet. In this regard, the short-term plans are envisaged to be implemented in the 2023-24 financial year up to the next 3 years, while long-term plans will be undertaken over the next 5 years. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. I have been informed that the Honorable F. Ikumalo will take charge of the first supplementary question on behalf of the Honorable Suma, in accordance with Rule 13710A. I now recognize the Honorable Kumalo.
Thank you, House Chair. Thank you, Minister, for your positive response. What work will PRASA undertake to improve the performance of the services through utilizing more efficient locomotives? Thank you, House Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The Honorable Minister.
In dealing with the situation, PRASA initiated a leasing process of at least 16 diesel locomotives for shunting operations and long-distance services in the open market. The process is at the procurement stage, and the business expects delivery of these locomotives at least at the end of July this year. With the appointment of the GO contractors, more focus will be on the long-distance coaches. We expect that we will be receiving the mainline passenger services, 20 of these coach for that 20 coaches. And we believe that this will be delivered by August this year. The next service to be introduced is, of course, Johannesburg, Durban, and of course, Johannesburg, Cape Town routes. These are the routes that have the demand in terms of mainland passenger rail services, and this will resume in the current financial year. And of course, PRASA will continue to run the special train services, such as you will be aware, the Comrade Marathon services, Makufe Jazz Festival, and return the premier class to its former glory. We hope it will happen. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. The second supplementary question is by the Honorable Mapena.
Thank you very much. Minister, I hear you. However, in 2009, PRASA was moving almost 4 million passengers per annum compared to a paltry 12,000 passengers. Over the last 13 years, PRASA has lost a frightening 99.5% of their passenger numbers. In 2010, PRASA's fare revenue collection stood at 228 million rands compared to a horrific 2.8 million rands in 2021. The railway agency remains a significant financial risk to the fiscus. Nothing works at PRASA, it is broken. It took so long for you to fire the board chairperson. Why can't you devolve these rail services to capable and competent provincial authorities such as the Western Cape Provincial Government and the City of Cape Town Metro Municipality? Can you make a commitment and can you give us timelines? When are you going to start the devolving of that process and giving them to the City of Cape? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much,
Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. Cape Town Metro is just failing to do one simple thing: to remove people from the rail reserve in the area of Khayelitsha and Philippi. Despite the fact that they've been given money by over 219 million rand by the Department of Human Settlement, they are failing just to do that. Now, if you're talking about running passenger rail, that's something that I don't believe they can manage if they're failing to just get land for people so that we can continue
Honorable Macpherson. Sorry, Honorable Minister. Honorable Macpherson, please. Don't drown the minister. He's replying to your question. Honorable Mapena is replying to your question.
Yes.
Honorable Minister, could you please continue?
Thank you very much, Chairperson. You said, Cape Town is doing the best. It's not. They've got money. They must assist us to relocate those people simply and find land in Cape Town because there's land. On the issue of PRASA, Chairperson, PRASA is on the right track. It is recovering corridors. It planned to recover 10 corridors in the past financial year. It recovered 13. We aim to recover 16 this financial year and to recover a number of stations. And I want to believe that we plan to recover up to about 33 stations and 16 additional corridors. So yes, we are improving and we are providing the services, and our people are actually appreciating that, even from Cape Town. All that they require is for Cape Town Metro to assist us to remove and to relocate people that are occupying the rail reserves. They've got money, it's been transferred to them. Let them identify the land so that those people can actually occupy formal houses. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The third supplementary question is by the Honorable Nolushungu.
Thank you, House Chair. Minister, our present reality is that there are no railway services across the country, and that attempts to resolve some of these non-functioning railways lines have been met with violence and intimidation, particularly in Cape Town. What is the full scope of the challenges facing the restoration of metro services in Cape Town? And what have you done to overcome these challenges? Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. In Cape Town, for instance, we have recovered the central line up to, I think, Nyanga. We've got already the contractor appointed. All that is remaining is for the metro to assist us to relocate people from the reserves. We plan to recover 4 more stations in Cape Town, but also we aim to ensure that we restore the signaling, which is important, so that more trains can be run. Because if you don't have signaling, you are managing trains manually, you can only run a train, 25 minutes in between. But if you have the signaling, the modern signaling that is actually working, you can have trains running 3 hours in 3 minutes apart. And this is what we're looking forward to. Indeed, we agreed there was a lot of vandalism that happened, particularly during the COVID stage when we're not running our trains. But we are trying to recover those, and there's a lot of work that is happening now because our people do want to use passenger trains, and that is why we are moving towards that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. The Honourable KP Sitola. The next supplementary question.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable Minister, our roads in South Africa have become more dangerous due to the over-reliance of road network by trucks and insufficient rail network. I would like to know what plans that the department have and by when to build, fix, and repair all major network roads, especially those that run from Gauteng and KZN, in order to enable commuters and flights, trains to operate, and when will the community receive such plan? Thank you very much, Honorable Chair.
Thank you very much, Honourable Jobe. Question number 302.
Chair.
Oh, sorry, Honourable Minister.
Okay. Now, thank you very much, Chairperson, and thank you, Honourable Stolle, for the question. Although it's supposed to, I think it's a new question, but I will respond to it. As the Department of Transport, we are responsible for the National Rail Policy, which was adopted by Cabinet. That National Rail Policy is actually calling for some measures to be taken to ensure that effectively we do move a cargo or freight from road to rail. Coupled with that, Chair, as the Department of Transport, Parliament will be aware, particularly the Portfolio Committee. Before the NCOP now, we have the Transport Economic Bill that will also ensure the access of railways and infrastructure to operators, but also deal with the cost of accessing infrastructure in the railway sector. And we believe that this is going to bring about some changes that will require in a way that will speed up the movement of freight from road to rail. We desperately, as the member has said, look forward to that, because particularly the entry that the member is referring to indeed it can no longer accommodate the number of trucks that are moving on that corridor. 9,500 trucks per day, they actually make Central not able to manage and to maintain that role as expected. The lifespan of that road is shortened. So yes, we are a policy department. We have the National Rail Policy. We have the TR that is before cabinet, Parliament, and we believe that it will be speeded up so that we can then have it as a legislation that will help us then to deal with some of the issues. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much. Question number 302 has been asked by the, where are we? 267. I will 267. Okay, sorry. This question seems to be lacking. We are at question number 267. At question number
Chair,
267, which has been asked by the Honorable Hansinger to the Minister of Transport. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Person. I'm not very sure whether I'm audible.
You are, can proceed.
Yes. Thank you very much, Chair, House Chairperson, and thank you, Honorable Dr. Hunsinger, for the question. The incident that occurred on the 18th of April 2023 at the Cape Town International Airport was due to a major power cable fault on the air side, which was created by a power surge that damaged the power supply, the fiber network, and multiple components of the automated weather observing systems, including the components that calculate the runway visual range. In that case, equally on the same day, there was a dense fog that made visibility low, and with our runway visual range not working, landing became a huge risk. A decision to divert all aircrafts destined to the airport as a safety measure, as this happened all the time if they are such, was therefore taken. The weather further deteriorated to about 100 meters visibility, and the decision therefore to divert those aircrafts was proved to be a correct safety intervention. The effect was that 11 aircraft were affected and therefore diverted, 9 domestics and 1 regional and 1 international aircraft. At about 9:30, the weather improved and aircrafts were allowed to land safely, and the RVR was reinstated in the afternoon. The notice was then cancelled as per the procedure. There is no requirement, Chair, to report such incident to ICAO, that is International Civil Aviation Organization, but of course, such an incident get reported to the regulator. I thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The first supplementary question is by the Honorable Hansinger.
Thank you, Chairperson. Minister, safety and the assurance of safe airspace is crucial for our global participation, both in passengers and cargo. Our economy and jobs depend on it. Statements from your department suspiciously claim major advances in aviation safety requirements from 87% to 92%, despite other versions claiming that the results of the same international aviation inspection report are only anticipated by the end of September in this case. In light of this, how should we accept these cheeky assertions, since several of South Africa's airports were also downgraded in recent months?
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Chairperson. There isn't any international airport that has been downgraded in South Africa, as far as I know, none at all. Secondly, Chairperson, with regards to our performance during the ICAO safety audit, the auditors, Chairperson, do inform the country about the interim results. And the ICAO auditors who came from different countries of the world did inform us that we actually have received at least around 92%. And this is adding, as the Honorable Dr. Hunsiga has said, onto our performance. A % improvement in the aviation sector, you work for it. Remember, they had to respond to more than 1,000 questions, and each question has to be provided with a portfolio of evidence. And I think it is important that as South Africans, we give due credit where it is due. Our entities in the aviation sector represented this country exceptionally good during that. As a result, South Africa is rated as #1 in the continent for now. If we can then begin to question that one, we were also audited by US, audited by EU, audited by ICAO for security in the aviation. With all this, we are in category 1 of US security and on category 1 in EU as well. So we're doing very well, and I think it's important that we praise ourselves for doing exceptionally good when it comes to us being audited by the international bodies, also by the Auditor General of South Africa. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The second supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Kumalo.
Thank you, House Chair. Thank you, Minister. Minister, has the Airport Authority repaired the guiding landing instruments at the Cape Town International Airport, which recently resulted in failure affecting aircraft landing in fog? And is there a need for routine maintenance of the guiding landing instruments at other airports? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. As I indicated in my response, this was attended to on the very same day. What we have learned out of this is that the parts, because I understand that these equipments, when they are installed, they have a life of about 15 years and more. But when they reach 10 years, they then have an overhaul maintenance has to be done and assessment as well. And this actually happened. And these ones, when after 10 years, then the maintenance become more frequent. And this is exactly what is now happening. But also, Chairperson, the very fact that one lesson that we learned is that some of the parts that were required on the day, that is on the 18th, had to be transported from, I think, Pretoria. What they have done now is to have some of the parts in our international airports, particularly Durban, King Shaka, Cape Town, as well as OR Tambo, so that if an event of this, in an event, something like that happens, the parts are not far away. However, I must indicate that there is indeed a plan by AXA to renovate all this and actually to put new systems in this regard. And this is actually planned by AXA to happen at OR Tambo, Cape Town, King Shaka, and of course, Chief David Stearman and King Palo airports. And this is the plan that we have already through Airport Company South Africa. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The Honorable Noluchungu.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, what mechanism is used to test the condition of the guiding instrument that regulates air traffic? How often is it serviced, and why was it not picked up sooner that the instrument was faulty?
Thank you, Honorable Member. The Honorable Minister.
Like I indicated, Chairperson, one of the reasons why we had that was because of electricity surge, load shedding, and that actually affected the parts. So it could not have been anticipated because the maintenance itself, Chairperson, is done on schedule. So it's not about the maintenance not being done. It is done and it was on schedule, and the records prove that beyond a reasonable doubt. But it then happened. And one thing good about this is that when it actually happened, decisions were taken to say because there is fog, but also it is coupled with the challenge with the parts, then the aircrafts have to be diverted. There is a plan, like I'm saying, of maintenance. This maintenance is offered by our air traffic navigation services, and it is on time, it is properly done, and it could not have been anticipated. But of course, the load shedding does have some impact, despite the fact that there is backup system in an event load shedding happen. But when electricity goes and it comes, it does affect some pattern. In this case, it did affect, and of course, like I've said, it was repaired on the same day. And that is why when the weather cleared, then of course the aircrafts were allowed to land in Cape Town. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. The last supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Keta Mabala Petros Sitol.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable Minister, the failure of guidance system for aircraft is a recipe for disaster waiting for happens, especially given the fact that thousands of South Africans make use of aircraft every day, including members of parliament. So the question is whether the department has worked with the Civic Aviation Authority to conduct oversight over all major airports in South Africa to ensure compliance of all equipment in relation to international standards. Which are those airports that do not comply? Thank you very much, Honorable Chair.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Our airports are complying. I just want to emphasize this point. In particular, our international airports that are owned by AXA are complying with international standards. And this is proven by our audit results by different international bodies, including our Auditor General. So I just want to emphasize that point. However, like it happens everywhere in the world, it may happen that a particular system fails. And in this case, and coupled with weather as well. In this case, Chairperson, we have backup systems if it's not like a part that is actually damaged. If any system fails, for instance, in the air traffic navigation services, there will always be a backup system that kicks in. Sometimes that will even include manual procedures that get implemented by our air traffic controllers. But also, Chairperson, in an event, even the manual procedures fail, we also have the radar that we use, which the air traffic controllers can actually communicating with the pilots, can inform them to delay so that there is adequate space between the aircrafts that are to land. So there are quite a number of systems that we use in the country and in the aviation space to ensure and to prevent any eventuality of any incident for that matter. But any incident, again, in the aviation sector gets reported to the regulator for the regulator to intervene and probably to even investigate if there is such a need. So yes, when decisions get taken well on time to say, we have got this challenge, we are diverting you, this is what happens all over the world, Chairperson. It's not unique to South Africa. It happens in big airports in the world where there is any minor or major incident that might endanger the landing of the aircraft. And this is exactly what happened. And I think we need to appreciate and congratulate those who take the decisions to do exactly that. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Question number 302 has been asked by the Honorable Matulelwa to the Minister of Small Business Development. I have been informed that the Minister and Deputy Minister are not available. The Minister requested for the question to stand over. Therefore, the question to the Minister of Small Business Development will stand over in terms of rules 1441A and 1442. Question number 255 has been asked by the Honorable S.R. van Schalkwyk to the Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, and thanks for the question, Honorable Van Schalkwyk. Yes, the position of the head of Infrastructure South Africa was advertised in April this year. The process of filling the position is ongoing and the position is funded. Among the priorities of the ISA, Infrastructure South Africa, it is to ensure that we provide strategic support, strategic, technical, and financial advisory support to project sponsors, especially at planning, preparatory, and development phases of the project that are enlisted within the national pipeline. The second priority is to monitor the level of implementation and address all regulatory and technical blockages that emerge on the implementation of the 88 strategic integrated project. Then we publish for public consultation and draft infrastructure development amendment bill to provide for the establishment of the ISA as it has happened. And we also have developed the National Infrastructure Plan 2020-2050, and we are responsible for the monitoring of such a plan. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The first supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Van Schalkwyk.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for your response. Surely, this 88 strategic infrastructure project is a project of priority in terms of our national government priorities. And we really need to see it being aligned to the promise by our Honorable President when he said that infrastructure development will be prioritized in this term, and we will see a massive rollout throughout. So I want to know, Honorable Minister, seeing that this ANC-led government is prioritizing people of all levels, including the poor and in different classes, we need to know, Honorable Minister, what are the social and economic benefits for communities of the proposed infrastructure development? And will this infrastructure development enable further linked infrastructure development to occur across the country in both urban as well as rural areas? I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, and thanks for the follow-up, Honorable Van Schalkwyk. Yes, there is a lot of social and economic benefit for communities who are around the areas of these projects. One of these projects include the Kliphoek bulk water supply, which is in Moretele North. And this is the 5.2 billion regional bulk water scheme, which aims to provide water in the whole district in areas around Bela-Bela. We also include in this project, we estimate that we will create 1,980 jobs, and we will ensure the provision of drinkable water and reduce healthy hazards. But we also will be ensuring that people who benefit will be more than 200,000 households in the area. Moreover, people who are around this project also get skills development. This is not the only project. We are also fast-tracking the implementation of projects such as Umkomazi Water Project, the water project that are in various areas such as Umtavume And we are also focused on implementation of the social housing project where the public sector is investing a lot. The last area of these 88, it's in energy, and we are also ensuring that communities around areas where projects are located benefit. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. The second supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable S.C. Tlulo.
Thank you very much indeed, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable Minister, with the current Minister of Electricity, Mtate Ramokopa, having been moved, I want to establish from the minister who has replaced him, as this is a key position which requires skills. What progress has been made in replacing him, and what will happen to the projects that the current Minister of Electricity had been managing? Given the fact that, Honorable Minister, that this is a critical position which requires engineering skills, which requires financial management skills, and does not require a recruitment of a comrade or a cadre who is going to occupy this particular position. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The Honorable Minister.
Well, I think we have built quite a good infrastructure in the ISA, Infrastructure South Africa. Currently, DDG DDG Mametsi is leading the Infrastructure South Africa. As I have said, we're in a process of filling the position. We have advertised, we've closed, and we will be conducting interviews. We are committed to ensure that all institutions are led by skilled people with relevant expertise and experience. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. The Honorable Suisa.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, taking into consideration that at this moment, we still have novice contractors that never get an opportunity because the department itself is still focusing on contractors that have been there since the former apartheid regime. What plans do you have to ensure that novice contractors are actually given an opportunity for employment due to the high rate of unemployment in South Africa? Are these novice contractors going to be given an opportunity by ISA in the project that are coming up? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. The Honorable Minister.
Of course, we are continuing to ensure that through the public procurement framework, we give opportunities to all people in the country, including the vulnerable groups, such as youth, women, people who are disabled, and the military veterans. We will never fall into a trap where we will be in a position of giving contract through any entity that we lead in a way that compromises the procurement framework. I must also say, at the same time, we are mindful that we need to build the capacity of the state. And that's why institutions like ISA are in place where we are drawing the expertise that are relevant and quite requisite for the built industry. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The last supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Telezi.
Thank you very much, House Chair. Honorable Minister, when you delivered your budget speech, you highlighted your department's determination to enhance participation by local communities on projects and also drive localization. Was this some sort of admission that your government has totally failed to be collaborating with local people? And what are the details that you can give so far as to how much you have gone in as far as ensuring what you undertaken to do? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Telezi. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Thank you, Honorable Shenge. This was not the admission, but it was a continuation, the affirmation of the continuing program of addressing the legacy or the injustices of the past. Through ensuring localization, we are empowering communities who were deprived for a long period. The people of South Africa suffered apartheid and colonialism for more than 3 decades. And we will continue to ensure that economic opportunities are opened for all local communities. Among others, we are also ensuring that we strengthen facilitation where you will find tension between local communities and project leaders. We ensure that there is a facilitation because what we've committed to do is to ensure localization, but fight criminality as we have seen number of forums which are moving around construction sites, disrupting and extorting money from project promoters. We're not going to tolerate that because that is criminal. We will deal with it head on. But where people want to enter into the built industry, we will support them through legal means that are in place. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Honorable members, the time allocated for questions has expired. Outstanding replies received will be printed in Hansard. Honorable members, can I have your attention, please? This is a feedback on the allegations of unparliamentary remarks which were made on the 9th of May, 2023. Order, honorable members. During the debate on Budget Vote 31, Employment and Labor on 9 May 2023, Mr. H. Hansinger rose on a point of order in terms of Rule 85, directed at the Minister of Employment and Labor, the Honorable Ting Ngesi, and said, I want to bring to your attention for serious consideration what the Minister said now on this platform, on the basis of accusing members of a particular race of the DA as being of a particular nature through their membership of a political party in representing the people of South Africa in the political party, the DA. It is noteworthy that in this point of order, the Honorable Hansinger did not specify the words or phrases or comments he found objectionable or unparliamentary in the minister's speech. That had to be surmised from the immediate context of the point of order. At the time the point of order was raised, I indicated that I would look into the matter and revert to the House with a considered ruling. Having studied the unrevised Hansard, I rule as follows, members. The point of order seems to have been triggered by the comments the minister made just before it was raised. The minister had taken issue with Mr. Kado, Member of Parliament, who had referred to the ANC as being a so-called liberation party. He then abruptly changed course and said that a black person who was still defending the DA was a rented black. He did not directly or indirectly use the reference rented black to refer to the members of the DA who are also members of the Assembly. While the rules clearly and necessarily prohibit reflections on members, they do not forbid reflections on formations of groupings. If the remarks of the minister had been specifically directed at the members of the Assembly, then the comment would have been unparliamentary. However, this is not the case in this instance. Therefore, I do not find the remarks unparliamentary. Thank you. Honorable members,
Point of order, Chair.
The second ruling, Honorable Hansing, I will not allow it. I've made a ruling. If you have some reservations about it, there are rules that you need to follow. You're welcome to do so.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, may I proceed? Order. During her speech in the debate on budget vote 1, the presidency on the 31st of May 2023, the Honorable Minister of International Relations and Cooperation said, and I quote, "Our aim is to contribute to addressing the triple challenges of joblessness, poverty, and inequality. Your rowdy chap was here, useless as ever, so keep quiet now." Honorable Macpherson rose on a point of order and appealed to the chair to rule in terms of Rule 85, because the Honorable Minister reflected on the Honorable McClure by calling him useless. Honorable Macpherson erred in asking the chair to rule in terms of Rule 85 instead of Rule 84. I nonetheless informed the House that I will check Hansard and revert with a ruling. Honorable members, having had the opportunity to check Hansard, I rule as follows. National Assembly Rule 84 prohibits members from using offensive, abusive, insulting, disrespectful, unbecoming, or unparliamentary words or language. The word useless has on several occasions been ruled as unparliamentary when directed at a member of the House. The Honorable Minister did not refer to the Honorable McClure by name, but to a rowdy chap who had been at the podium. Honorable McClure is the member who had just spoken from the podium before the Honorable Minister. As she rose without being recognized by the chair to defend herself, the Honorable Minister emphasized that she could have been referring to any other member in the House, such as Honorable Mpele or the Honorable Faber, or an honorable member at the back. Noteworthy is the fact that the Honorable Minister limited the
No, we cannot allow that gesture by Honorable Kachalia. As he leaves the House, he cannot do that.
Okay.
He cannot do that.
Okay,
Parliamentary cannot do that.
Thank you very much. I'll revert to that, Honorable Chief Whip. Honorable Chief Whip.
Please, man, ndithetha no chair, andithethi nawe bhuti.
Thank you, Honorable Chief Whip. I will look into that and deal with it later. Noteworthy is the fact that the Honorable Minister limited the probable targets of her remark to members of the House only. In this context, therefore, the Honorable Minister transgressed Rule 84 by referring to Honorable McClure as a rowdy chap and as useless as ever. The Honorable Minister is therefore kindly requested to withdraw the remark that the Honorable McClure is a rowdy chap and is useless as ever. Is the Honorable Minister there?
Yes, I am here, Honorable Chairperson, and I withdraw.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Honorable members, we are kindly requested to stand up until the maize and the chairperson has left the House. That concludes the business for the day and the House is adjourned.